Chapter 101. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. In order to prove his identity, the young man took out a token of his mansion. It was not a bronze token, but an iron token engraved with lines. Gu Jiao had not been here for a long time. Usually, she was in contact with the villagers in the village and had little contact with the big families. However, she also knew that such tokens were strictly controlled in the Zhao kingdom. Ordinary wealthy families could only use wooden plates, and above that were fishbone plates. Only officials could use iron plates. However, the iron tokens of officials had the emblem of the Zhao kingdom on the back, but this iron token obviously did not. So there was only one possibility. Although the other party was not an official, his background might be even more powerful than an official. Jiao. Little Jing Kong looked at Gu Jiao with confusion. He was still young and did not understand what was going on. Gu Jiao touched his little head and said to the young man, "Okay, I'll go with you." Then she said to little Jing Kong, "Let's go find Grandaunt." No. Little Jing Kong shook his head like a rattledrum. These days he had been going to school every day and had no time to play with Jiao. He finally had a day off, and he wanted to be Jiao's little tail. Gu Jiao looked at his big black eyes full of expectation and finally did not refuse. "Okay." The young man smiled and made a gesture. "Please." Gu Jiao went next door to tell Xuaningxiang and asked her to take care of the house. Then she and little Jing Kong sat in the carriage prepared by the young man. The young man himself rode the horse and followed them. The carriage soon arrived at the only tea house in the town. The owner of this tea house was from the provincial capital. It was said that he had a powerful background. Usually, people who visited the tea house were famous people in the town. However, the tea house was empty today. It seemed that it had been booked. The other party was really generous. Gu Jiao and little Jing Kong were led into an elegant and unique room by the young man. The young man ordered the servants to serve tea and snacks. He seemed to be very attentive to Gu Jiao. If it were a normal person, they would have been smug, but Gu Jiao was very calm. As the saying goes, one does not visit a temple without a cause. There must be a demon behind this abnormal situation. With her current status, she could not afford to be served like this. The young man said, "Madam Xiao, please wait for a moment. I will go and ask Steward Zhou to come over." Gu Jiao nodded. The young man's politeness to her was actually superficial. Gu Jiao could feel the contempt in his bones. However, Gu Jiao did not force him. Some people went blind at a young age. It was his loss, not hers. The young man really didn't think much of a village woman, especially when Gu Jiao was so ugly. He was even more disdainful of her. However, the steward had told him that he must be very polite to Madame Xiaocai and must not show any disrespect. The young man turned to ask his steward. Steward Zhou came quickly. After all, he was a steward. He was much better than the young man in terms of facial expression. At least, the smile on his face looked very sincere. Little Jing Kong took a plate of snacks from the table and handed it to little Jing Kong. "Go and play in the yard for a while. I have something to talk to someone." "Okay." Little Jing Kong jumped down from the wooden stool, took the plate of snacks, and went out quietly. The window was open. Gu Jiao could see the whole yard from where she was sitting. Little Jing Kong found a small stone stool and sat down. He swung his short legs while eating. He probably noticed that Gu Jiao was looking at him. He turned his head and smiled sweetly at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao also smiled. He was so happy that he flew up and continued to eat the snacks. Steward Zhou patiently waited for them to finish their interaction. Then he stepped forward and bowed to Gu Jiao. "Nice to meet you, Madam Xiao." Gu Jiao didn't get up to salute him. She wasn't flattered. She just nodded calmly. Steward Zhou was a little surprised. He sized Gu Jiao up from head to toe. It was as if she was just an ordinary village girl in terms of clothes and appearance. In fact, because of her appearance, she should feel even more inferior and embarrassed than ordinary women. However, she didn't feel that way. Instead, she gave people an illusion that she was unattainable. Steward Zhou calmed down and said to Gu Jiao, Madam Xiao, I'm from the Lin family in the provincial capital. Have you heard of the Lin family? No. Gu Jiao said concisely. Steward Zhou was surprised. Was this girl a local? How come she hadn't heard of the Lin family? The Lin family was the local tyrant in Yuzhou. Even the prefecture overseer had to give the Lin family some face. The Lin family was originally in the salt transportation business. In the early days, they sold illegal salt and established their own salt gang. The imperial court sent an army to attack the salt gang. In the end, both sides suffered losses. Later, the imperial court adopted a policy of enlistment and incorporated the salt gang. Although they were incorporated, the salt gang was still managed by the Lin family. It was just that the silver earned from the salt transportation was equally divided with the imperial court. Moreover, the salt gang was no longer allowed to oppress the common people and rob them of their wealth. When necessary, they had to assist the imperial court in eliminating water bandits. Steward Zhou gave a general explanation of the Lin family's background. Then he began to wait. Gu Jiao was shocked. In the end, Gu Jiao was still very calm. Was this girl stupid? It's good that she was stupid. Steward Zhou smiled and said to Gu Jiao, I came to Clear Spring Town this time because of your reputation. Little brother Xiao hasn't congratulated Madam Xiao on passing the exam. This is a congratulatory gift. I hope Madam Xiao will kindly accept it. As he spoke, he gave a look to the servant outside the room. A maidservant came in with a heavy box. After putting the box on the table, Steward Zhou waved his hand and let the maidservant withdraw. Steward Zhou opened the box, revealing the shining silver inside. Gu Jiao's gaze fell on the silver ingots. She asked indifferently, Steward Zhou, if you have something to say it directly. A country person seeing so much silver was unexpectedly so calm. Steward Zhou became more and more suspicious of this Madam Xiao. However, he didn't show it on his face. He smiled and said, Madam Xiao is really a straightforward person. To tell you the truth, little brother Xiao took the first place in both the county and capital examinations. His results are outstanding. After my family's master read his essay, he very much admires little brother Xiao's talent. He wants to invite little brother Xiao to the provincial capital's Lin family as a guest. Gu Jiao didn't hurry to respond. Steward Zhou continued, My family's master sincerely wants to make friends with little brother Xiao. He also asks Madam Xiao to make things convenient. Gu Jiao said indifferently, Why don't you go directly to him? Or did you say you went to him, but he refused? Steward Zhou choked. Gu Jiao said, It seems like he refused. After saying this, Gu Jiao stood up and left. Steward Zhou was stunned. So direct and efficient? She didn't even give him a chance to bargain? Was she still a woman? No, was she still a person? Steward Zhou hurriedly called out to her. Madam Xiao, please wait. Do you think I'm not sincere enough? These are only congratulatory gifts. Everything can be discussed. Gu Jiao still didn't move. Steward Zhou caught up with her and said with a head full of sweat, Seeing that the provincial examination is only a few days away, little brother Xiao will go to the provincial capital. Why don't you stay in the provincial capital first? Our Lin family will take care of everything for little brother Xiao. The date of the provincial examination was indeed close. Gu Jiao paused and turned around to look at him. Then what does he need to do? Pack up his things, move in, and leave after the examination? Steward Zhou was almost choked by Gu Jiao's straightforwardness. It's like this. My family's young master is also about to take the provincial examination. I'd like to ask little brother Xiao to give some pointers to my family's young master during his short stay. Gu Jiao said, Oh, so it's to be a teacher. But since he already refused. No, he didn't refuse. Gu Jiao looked at him strangely. Steward Zhou said embarrassedly, To be exact, he didn't refuse my request. Originally, when Steward Zhou went to Tianxiang Academy to find Xiao Lulang, he said that as long as Xiao Lulang guaranteed that the Lin family's young master could pass the provincial examination, their master would reward little brother Xiao with 2,000 taels of silver. Although he knew that provincial officials were very valuable in ancient times, he didn't expect it to be this valuable. Wasn't it better to be a rich second generation that ate and drank for free? Did he have to break his head to take the provincial examination? This had always been the Lin family's sore point. To put it nicely, the Lin family came from the salt gang. To put it bluntly, they were salt merchants. They had once been in cahoots with pirates and snakes. The Lin family was so poor that they only had money left. Why did the imperial court recruit the Lin family? Wasn't it because the Lin family's descendants were useless and would decline in 2 or 3 generations? At that time, the Salt Gang would completely fall into the hands of the imperial court. It wasn't that the Lin family didn't expect the family's crisis. It was just that they looked brave at that time, but in reality, they didn't have the strength to fight against the imperial court. Even if they fought with their backs to the river, at most they would kill a few thousand of the imperial court soldiers. However, the Lin family wouldn't have a single person left alive. Being recruited would at least give the Lin family several decades of stability. The Lin family hoped that their descendants would have some prospects and be able to support the Lin family in the future. As a matter of fact, after the Lin family had produced more than a dozen good-for-nothings, they finally had a 6th son who passed the county-level examination. The 6th young master was born from a concubine, but he was diligent and studious. Master Lin and Madam Lin both valued him highly. The entire Lin family treated the 6th young master as a treasure. In order to nurture him, the Lin family had spent a lot of money. Xiao Lulang was recommended by a teacher in the Lin family. The Lin family's master was a boorish man. How could he know anything about 8-legged riding? However, he trusted the teacher from the capital. The teacher said that Xiao Liulang's literary talent was better than any other teacher in the Lin family. With him teaching the 6th young master, he would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/115477863. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 102. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Steward Joe said. I thought about it last night, and felt that the request I made to little brother Xiao was too much. As the saying goes, the master can show you the way, but the cultivation depends on the person. Whether my master can pass the provincial level examination or not depends on his own luck. However, we sincerely want to ask little brother Xiao for advice. My master said that as long as little brother Xiao is willing to go to the provincial capital, everything else is negotiable. Gu Jiao looked at him and said, in other words, it's not our fault if he doesn't pass the examination? Steward Joe hurriedly said, not bad, not bad. Gu Jiao said, money. Steward Joe said, give it to him. Give it to him when he goes to the provincial capital. I won't go back on my words. Gu Jiao said, you can go and talk to my husband directly. Steward Joe said helplessly, why didn't I go? But little brother, Xiao doesn't want to talk to us anymore. I hope Lady Xiao can do me a favor and take this money first. It's all yours whether he passes the examination or not. Gu Jiao took the brocade box from him and said coldly, it doesn't matter if it's money or not. I just want to ask for your help. Steward Joe, can you not say greedy for money in such a fresh and refined way? Steward Joe thanked her profusely. Gu Jiao repeatedly emphasized that she was just a messenger and not a lobbyist. Steward Joe smiled and said, of course. Of course. Gu Jiao took the money and little Jing Kong back to the village. She counted the money. It was a total of 500 taels. This messenger fee was really not small. After Xiao Lulang finished school that night, Gu Jiao told him about her meeting with Steward Joe during the day. She didn't hide a word and didn't add any details. Xiao Lulang listened and frowned. Of course, he wasn't complaining that Gu Jiao went to see Steward Zhou, but he didn't expect Steward Zhou to not give up and come to his house. He said, "In the future, if someone comes to visit, don't leave with them easily. Steward Zhou is not a difficult person to deal with, but what if?" Gu Jiao looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. "You seem to be worried about something. Could it be that someone will come looking for you?" Xiao Lulang opened his mouth but hesitated. After a while he said, "I just want you to be careful." "Got it." Gu Jiao smiled, then looked at the box of silver on the table and said, "What do you plan to do about the Lin family?" Xiao Lulang was aware of the Lin family's situation. It was exactly as what Steward Zhou had said. If no one in the family could become an official, no one would be able to protect the Lin family after 30 years. Of course, the Lin family could buy an official position, but the position they bought wouldn't be high enough, and no one would dare to sell the position to the Lin family. Thus, the imperial examination was the only way out for the Lin family. He had heard that in order to have more useful sons, the master of the Lin family had almost turned himself into a breeding pig. Xiao Lulang muttered to himself for a moment and said, "If you don't insist on results, there's no harm in going." After all, it was 2,000 taels of silver. Gu Jiao also felt that it was feasible. The provincial capital was farther than the prefectural capital. If it was the provincial examination, they would have to leave more than a month in advance. It was hard to say if they would be able to find a suitable place to settle down. If they lived in the Lin Manor, it would be much more convenient. Moreover, if they went earlier, they would be able to acclimatize sooner and wait for the exhausted. Gu Jiao asked, "Will it delay your studies?" Xiao Lulang said, "It won't." Gu Jiao remembered that the principal had said that Xiao Lulang was an extremely intelligent person. It was just that he didn't want to go to the capital for the imperial examination. Letting him travel around wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Gu Jiao nodded. "Then it's settled." Xiao Lulang said, "Yes." She originally thought that the matter of going to the Lin family was settled. Unexpectedly that night, Gu Jiao had a dream. She dreamed that Xiao Lulang had agreed to Steward Zhou, and was escorted to the provincial capital by Steward Zhou and the Lin family's guards. The Lin family was indeed sincere in seeking advice, and didn't plan to play any tricks. This matter was supposed to be foolproof, but man proposes and God disposes. Halfway through the journey, Xiao Liulang's group ran into a once-in-a-decade rainstorm. The relay station that Xiao Lulang lived in was flooded, and the group was separated by the water. Xiao Lulang hugged a piece of driftwood and his life was saved, but he fell seriously ill. By the time Steward Zhou and the others found him and brought him back to the Lin family, he had already lost a layer of skin. Fortunately, they had set off early. Even if they were delayed for so long, there were still 2 months before the provincial examination. Xiao Lulang recuperated in the Lin family while tutoring the Lin family's 6th young master. The Lin family's 6th young master was a well-behaved person. He wasn't extremely smart, but he was diligent and persevering. Xiao Lulang got along well with him. However, something big happened when the provincial examination was approaching. A cousin of the Lin family came to the Lin family for a short stay. She was the niece of the Lin family's matriarch. That cousin of the Lin family fell in love with Xiao Lulang at first sight. Xiao Lulang was still a cripple, but she still fell in love with him. It could be seen that this man's appearance was very troublesome. However, she was a girl with status and couldn't recommend herself to sleep with him. Coincidentally, the Lin family's 6th young master had caught a cold. The cousin of the Lin family's 6th young master came up with a plan and persuaded her aunt. "Cousin probably won't be able to pass the examination like this. Why don't we let Xiao Lulang take the examination instead? Cousin will write his name, and he will write cousin's name. This way, the chances of him passing the examination will be higher than cousin's." The cousin of the Lin family told her aunt that she was willing to be Xiao Liulang's concubine to express her gratitude. Madame Lin was an experienced person. How could she not see through it? However, these words did indeed strike a chord in her heart. Although she didn't give birth to the Lin family's 6th young master, this concerned the future of the entire Lin family. Madame Lin agreed. Xiao Lulang sternly refused and even reprimanded the two of them. Madame Lin had an attitude of giving it a try. If it didn't work, then forget it. However, that cousin of the Lin family was a ruthless character. In a fit of anger, she actually drugged Xiao Lulang. In all fairness, that cousin of the Lin family's sixth young master wasn't bad. It could even be said that she was as beautiful as a flower. However, even so, Xiao Lulang relied on his strong willpower to overcome the effects of the aphrodisiac. However, he also fell ill from then on. After waking up, Gu Jiao was furious. What a messy cousin of the Lin family. How dare she have such a bad idea about Xiao Lulang? She even used such a despicable method to harm him and the good fortune of the rest of his life. Moreover, it wasn't only his good fortune. This was intolerable. It seemed that he couldn't go to the Lin family's mansion. That cousin of the Lin family was a frequent visitor. As long as Xiao Lulang moved in, he would definitely meet her no matter how careful he was. The sky was slightly bright. Gu Yan and old Madame Lin were still sleeping in their rooms. Gu Jiao was sitting in the central room, eating breakfast with Xiao Lulang and little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong was the first to finish eating. Then he went back to the west room to pack his bag. Gu Jiao took a sip of porridge and hesitated about how to start the conversation with him. He got up early in the morning and packed his luggage. Gu Jiao looked at the two bags on the chair with a subtle expression. Well, she said calmly, I've thought about the Lin family's matter. Do you want to reconsider it? What's wrong? Xiao Lulang looked at her confusedly. Gu Jiao said seriously, you'll be gone for so long. What will happen to your family? Xiao Lulang was stunned. We don't farm. Gu Jiao continued to be serious. We don't farm, but there are old and young at home. It's hard for me to take care of them alone. Occasionally, I have to go up the mountain. Xiao Lulang was confused. He didn't seem to be of much help at home. He didn't do much work at all. The main thing was that she rushed to finish it. Logically speaking, she should be more relaxed when he wasn't at home. Gu Jiao. I can't always trouble Xuaning Xiang. Xiao Lulang. How about hiring a maid? The family could afford to hire a maid now. He was a man, so it wasn't convenient for him to live under the same roof. But if he wasn't there would be no need to avoid arousing suspicion. Gu Jiao. I'm not used to strangers living in my house. This still couldn't convince Xiao Lulang. After all, she was the one who expressed her desire for him to go to the provincial capital yesterday. Gu Jiao also understood, so she gave him another dose of medicine. Also, I heard from Gu Yan that there are many beautiful daughters in the Lin family. Who knows if you will flirt with flowers and grass when you go there? Find me a few sisters. Gu Yan was the young master of the Marquis's household. He was well informed, so it wasn't surprising that he had heard about the Lin family. Moreover, Xiao Lulang wouldn't ask Gu Yan to confirm if he had instilled any strange thoughts in his sister. Xiao Lulang looked deeply at Gu Jiao. So you're jealous? Gu Jiao. Can I say no? Xiao Lulang scooped a spoonful of millet porridge. I know I won't go. No way. So easy to talk to? Gu Jiao glanced at him. I just mentioned it casually. The decision is up to you. It's 2,000 taels of silver. Don't you feel the pinch? Xiao Lulang said lightly. It seems like you feel the pinch. Gu Jiao was embarrassed. Is it that obvious? Then she said without changing her expression. Actually, it doesn't matter if it's money or not. The main thing is to save a determined young man. Forget it, it's useless to talk about it now. If he didn't go to the Lin family, how could he earn the money? Xiao Lulang looked at her and pretended as if nothing had happened. He probably didn't know that his little mouth was pouting so hard that it could hang a pot of oil. Xiao Lulang and little Jing Kong went to town. He first sent little Jing Kong to the private school, then went to Tianxiang Academy. Steward Zhou had been waiting for a long time. When he saw Xiao Lulang, he greeted him with a smile. Scholar Xiao, what's your decision? Xiao Lulang said lightly. I can teach your son, but I have a condition. Steward Zhou was overjoyed. Don't mention a condition. Even 10 conditions will do. Xiao Lulang said. I won't go to the provincial capital. If your son really wants to teach, let him come here. I'll arrange for him to enter the academy and sit with me. Steward Zhou opened his mouth. This How about I add some money? Xiao Lulang said lightly. It's useless even if you add money. If he comes, I'll teach him. If he can't come, I'll find someone else. Digression, Beauty Xiao. What should I do if my wife is jealous? I'm waiting online, it's urgent. I mainly want to show off to you guys. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/115451113. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugu mobile reading website. Chapter 103. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Not long after Xiao Lulang left, Marquis Gu came looking for her. He came behind Madame Yao's back, mainly because he was worried about Gu Yan. He always felt that this kind of remote place would spoil his precious son, so he hoped to bring Gu Yan back. The one who opened the door was Gu Yan. When Gu Yan saw his father, he quickly closed the door. Marquis Gu was so angry that he stomped his feet, but the door didn't open even when he shouted. When he finally got to the back door, Gu Yan had already bolted the door in his room. Marquis Gu, who was so angry that his teeth were chattering. The little chicks hadn't started their day's activities and were quietly locked in the chicken coop. Marquis Gu found Gu Jiao, who was busy in the backyard, and pointed at the tightly shut door. You don't care about him. Gu Jiao looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot, her eyes direct and cold. Ignoring him, she took out a shining axe from the woodshed. Marquis Gu gasped, You? What are you doing? Are you planning to kill? Before he could finish, he heard a loud crash. Gu Jiao had split a piece of wood in half. The wood was split into 2 halves. The cut was complete and the force was even. With one look he could tell that she was an expert in chopping people. No chopping firewood. Marquis Gu swallowed his saliva and found his voice after a while. Your place is not suitable for Yanner to live in. He grew up spoiled and spoiled. His food and clothes are not comparable to a normal person's. His body is finally getting better. If you don't take care, I'm afraid that his illness will act up again. You're his sister, don't harm him. If you two really want to be together, then move back to the villa. The villa is so big, you can live in whichever courtyard you want. If you don't like the current one, you can have the servants build a new one. He swore that this was the most sincere and earnest words he had ever said to this girl. He had made a huge concession, so he should be moved now, right? He didn't yell at her, didn't hit her, and spoke to her so nicely. She should be satisfied, right? But who would have thought that Gu Jiao was not moved at all? She only said indifferently, He's living very well here. Marquis Gu said angrily, Look at this poor place. How could he possibly live well? Gu Jiao chopped down with her axe. The manner of the Marquis and the manor are so good. How did he recover from his illness all these years? Marquis Gu was rendered speechless. That's right, Gu Yan had been living in the most luxurious house, eating the most exquisite delicacies, and having a large group of servants. However, his body was still deteriorating. It was only after encountering Huichun Hall that he finally came back from the dead. Marquis Gu knew that this matter could not be resolved. Otherwise, why would they be called fraternal twins? The siblings were exactly the same when it came to opposing him. Marquis Gu put his hands on his hips and took a few deep breaths. When do you plan to return? If he insisted on staying, he would definitely succeed, right? But there had to be a time limit. Consort Shu was urging him. He had to bring people back to the capital by June at the latest. He could not allow the siblings to continue messing around. If he wants to go back, he will naturally go back. Gu Jiao did not mention herself, because she had never thought of going back. Marquis Gu finally understood what was going on. This girl was stubborn. Was she going to go against him to the end? Forget it, forget it. He would let Yaoshe deal with this matter later. If she spoke, it would be easier to accept fraternal twins. Marquis Gu remembered his second reason for coming here. It's fine if you don't go back with me for now, but you must separate from that little cripple. Gu Jiao's chopping motion paused. Marquis Gu said, while the two of you have not consummated your marriage, you are still a virgin. When you return to the capital, say that you have never married. I will find you a good marriage. Dong. Gu Jiao chopped the axe into the wood. If he urged her to return to the capital with Gu Yan, she could still reluctantly treat it as a fart. But to ask her to separate from Xiao Lulang was too much. What kind of dogfather would inquire about whether his daughter had consummated her marriage? Gu Jiao had actually misunderstood Marquis Gu. He only knew that she had the chastity mark on her face. But this was not important anymore. Gu Jiao was already angry. Marquis Gu was still prattling on, even listing a long list of famous young masters in the capital. But before he could finish, he saw Gu Jiao stand up with a cold expression. Marquis Gu felt his scalp tighten under Gu Jiao's death stare, and his hair stood on end. This girl, how could she have such a frightening gaze? You, what right do you have to interfere with my matters? Because I am your father. Then did you raise me? Did you raise me for even a day? Marquis Gu choked, and after a while he stammered. Isn't that because we carried the wrong child? Am I not back to make it up to you now? As long as you return with me, you will be the daughter of the Marquis. Your mother and I will dote on you. Gu Jiao sneered. You have no sincerity at all. Marquis Gu said unhappily, how am I not sincere? Gu Jiao said slowly, if you really want to take me back, then chase out that Gu Jinyu who has taken over my identity for more than 10 years. That is the sincerity you should have. Marquis Gu's face darkened. How can you say such vicious words? None of this is Jinyu's fault, but you want to blame it on her. To think that she keeps speaking up for you, saying that her illness is not because you bullied her. But look at yourself. How are you an elder sister? Gu Jiao said indifferently. I don't have a younger sister. You. Marquis Gu thought of how Jinyu always called her elder sister affectionately. Looking at this girl again, he felt that there was nothing good about her and was thoroughly disappointing. I will not chase Jinyu away. Stop dreaming. Ha, who cares? Gu Jiao chased him out and slammed the door shut. Huang Zhong was waiting at the entrance of the village for his marquis not to come, thinking that he might have ruined something again. He was about to go look for him when he saw his marquis coming over with his hand covering his nose. Marquis, what's wrong? He asked worriedly. Marquis Gu put down his hand covering his nose. Huang Zhong was stunned. You were beaten again? Why was his nose bleeding? And his nose was swollen? Isn't it because that girl slammed the door too quickly? He wanted to step in but was slammed out by the door, and his nose was almost knocked crooked. Huang Zhong sighed. Can't you not make eldest miss angry? Marquis Gu glared at him. What do you mean I made her angry? It's clearly her who made me angry. Huang Zhong asked. How did she make you angry? Marquis Gu snorted. She actually shamelessly asked me to chase Jinyu out. Why is she so petty that she can't even tolerate a younger sister? Did Jinyu say anything when he found out that he had an elder sister? This was different. Second Miss was not his biological daughter, and she had taken over the identity of eldest Miss for so many years. It was good enough that she was not sent back to the main family. How could she complain? Second Miss was innocent, but wasn't eldest Miss the same? She suffered the hardships that Second Miss deserved, and Second Miss enjoyed the blessings that she deserved. Who would be happy? But Huang Zhong had followed the Marquis for many years and knew his character well. He was extremely rebellious in his bones, and was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. The more he was not allowed to do something, the more he would do it to the end. On this point, the father and daughter were 100% alike. Huang Zhong sighed. Marquis, let's go back. Marquis Gu's gaze was dangerous. The matter has not been settled. How can I go back? Huang Zhong was speechless. No, you can't do anything to eldest Mississippi. I can't do anything to her, but that doesn't mean I can't do anything to others. Marquis Gu said coldly, let's go to the academy. Class had just ended at the academy. Xiao Lulang came out of Tianxiang Academy and was about to go to the private school to pick up little Jing Kong. Marquis Gu called over the academy's servant and asked him to point out who was Xiao Lulang. The servant pointed. It's him. Marquis Gu looked at Xiao Lulang, and with just one glance, his eyeballs almost fell out. Wasn't this the young man that he met on the way out of the village, and looked similar to Zhao Du's young marquis? How could it be him? Marquis Gu and Zhao Du's young marquis had not met much, mainly because there was no interaction between the two manors. Although they were both Marquis manors, Marquis Xianping's rank was higher than Marquis Ding An's. Marquis Xianping was a true first-grade marquis. He had power and influence, wealth that could rival a country, and he dominated the capital. Marquis Xianping's younger sister was the current Empress Xiao. When his own sister, Consort Xu, saw her, she had no choice but to perform the etiquette of a concubine. A son from such a family was definitely worthy of being called a favored son of heaven. His birth was already so outstanding, but he still did not disappoint. When he was 12 or 13 years old, he became the young chancellor of the Imperial College. His magnificence did not lose to his biological father, Marquis Xianping. Unfortunately, heaven was jealous of such talents. Marquis Gu looked at Xiao Lulang again. This time he did not feel that they were similar. Zhao Du's young marquis was a pure and kind young man. He was gentle like jade, and his eyes always held a clean and beautiful smile. Xiao Liulang's eyes were too cold, and his heart was dark. Marquis Gu narrowed his eyes unhappily. At this time, Xiao Lulang came closer. The servant waved at him. Xiao Lulang. Someone is looking for you. Xiao Lulang glanced at Marquis Gu and stopped in his tracks. Marquis Gu did not insist on waiting for him to come over. He walked over himself and looked at Xiao Lulang with disdain. You are Xiao Lulang? Xiao Lulang looked at him calmly. What is it? Marquis Gu gave Huang Zhong a look. Huang Zhong took out a stack of banknotes. Marquis Gu said arrogantly, Leave my daughter and these banknotes are yours. Xiao Lulang did not even look at the banknotes. He said expressionlessly, Isn't this too little? Marquis Gu raised his chin and said, 5,000 taels is enough for you to squander for a few lifetimes. You can also marry a few beauties and live a carefree life for the rest of your life. Don't think that your future is limitless just because you took the first 2 exams. I have seen many people like you, but not many of them can really make it to the court examination. If you are unlucky, you will fail the provincial examination. How much effort did the aristocratic families spend to raise their children? There was no lack of intelligent and diligent students among them. How could these poor students compare to them? Even if they were lucky enough to enter the capital, did they really think they could make a name for themselves? Perhaps the provincial examination was still a competition of strength, but the higher you went, the more influence you had. Every year, the top 3 were born from the candidates of the major powers in the capital. How much of this was due to the emperor's helplessness, and how much of it was due to unspeakable political struggles? This was something that Xiao Lulang and the other poor and pedantic bookworms could never imagine. Studying could turn a group of small shrimps into small fish, but it was impossible for a carp to leap over the dragon's gate. Marquis Gu looked at Xiao Lulang and said, People are destined to be rich and poor from birth. You are not fit to be my son-in-law. Know your place and take these banknotes and disappear from my sight. If you think it is too little, I can add a bit more for you. Huang Zhong. Huang Zhong took out another 1,000 taels of banknotes. Xiao Lulang smiled coldly. Marquis Gu, have you forgotten something? What? Marquis Gu asked. Xiao Liulang's lips curled. She is still not your daughter. Heart-wrenching. Marquis Gu's arrogance froze. Xiao Lulang lightly mocked. If you are referring to the daughter you already have, then there is no need. I have no interest in the daughter you have raised by your side since childhood. Even if you give me 5,000 taels of gold, I won't even look at her. What kind of disdainful tone was this? Wasn't this brat too arrogant? Did he know how many people in the capital wanted to marry Jinyu? They were all young masters who were thousands of times more outstanding than him. No, now was not the time to be angry about this. He had almost been led astray by this brat. Marquis Gu clenched his fists, planning to teach this brat a lesson. Huang Zhong. Where was he? Where did he die to? Marquis Gu turned around, wanting to see where Huang Zhong went. But suddenly, a slender hand reached out from behind him, grabbing his collar and dragging him into a side alley. Half an hour later, Gu Jiao calmly walked out of the alley. Xiao Lulang looked at her strangely. She clapped her hands, revealing a gentle smile. Sorry for making you wait. We have finished communicating, he won't bother you anymore. Marquis Gu, who had been communicated, sat in the corner of the alley like a puppet with its strings cut. His body that had lost consciousness from the pain helplessly leaned against the wall. Beside him, Huang Zhong had also become a soulless puppet. Both of them had lifeless expressions. Their faces were bruised and swollen. Their noses were crooked and their mouths were slanted. It was a tragic sight. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels to read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896/115447491. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 104. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. It was already late at night when Marquis Gu and Huang Zhong limped back to the villa. They wanted to go back earlier, but they couldn't move for a few hours. Gu Jinyu saw the two of them covered in injuries and wondered, "Father, bodyguard Huang, what happened to you?" Marquis Gu was too ashamed to tell the truth, so he said sullenly, "We had a car accident." Gu Jinyu was stunned. What happened to the carriage? Why was there a car accident? Marquis Gu glanced at Huang Zhong. Huang Zhong drove under the influence. Huang Zhong. He was in the house, but trouble fell from the sky. Gu Jinyu frowned. Bodyguard Huang, why did you drink? Huang Zhong glanced at Marquis Gu. Marquis Gu asked me to drink. Marquis Gu. It was the end of April and Tianxiang Academy's holidays were coming. Gu Xiaoshan, who had stayed in the dormitory for many days, could finally go home. Even though he wasn't in the village, he was very clear about what was happening at home. To be exact, as long as little Jing Kong knew about it, he knew about it too. The main reason was that after little Jing Kong went to the private school, the three of them would have lunch together every day. Little Jing Kong's private school provided lunch, but there was lard in the food, so little Jing Kong couldn't eat it. Xiao Lulang could only bring him out to eat. They were all younger brothers, so there was no reason to bring only one. Little Jing Kong was a quiet child in the private school, but in front of Gu Xiaoshan, he immediately turned into a loudspeaker and told him everything that happened at home. When he first heard that Gu Jiao had carried the wrong child, Gu Xiaoshan was shocked beyond words. When he heard that the young master of the Marquis Gu's residence directly moved into the house, Gu Xiaoshan was so shocked that his head almost fell off. Little Jing Kong was obviously displeased with Gu Yan, who suddenly appeared at home to compete with him for favor. His tone was full of helplessness. However, it's not like there's nothing to be happy about. You have your own room now. You can live at home in the future. Gu Xiaoshan quickly became happy. No, he had been quite happy. Gu Xiaoshan was not a child who knew how to fight for favor. His mind was neither sensitive nor meticulous. He simply could not react when others were jealous of him. Perhaps it had something to do with the environment he grew up in. He had always been the one who was neglected by his family. His heart gradually became numb, and he did not develop the possessiveness of little Jing Kong and Gu Yan. Because of this, little Jing Kong was very receptive to Gu Xiaoshan. After arriving home, Gu Xiaoshan met Gu Yan. Wow! Little Jing Kong had been complaining about Gu Yan for the past few days. He had never said that Gu Yan was so good-looking. Gu Xiaoshan was stunned. With Gu Xiaoshuan's silly look, It was obvious that he was not someone who could compete with him. Gu Yan had a judgment in his heart. He was not so repulsed by Gu Xiaoshan. Although he was jealous of Gu Xiaoshan growing up with Gu Jiao, he was also grateful that he had accompanied Gu Jiao during her most lonely days. He had even been beaten up for Gu Jiao. This was a strong friendship. Gu Yan patted Gu Xiaoshuan's shoulder very loyally. Before he could say from now on we are brothers, he felt his palm go numb. Damn it. Was this silly guy's shoulder made of iron? It was so hard. The pampered baby Gu's palms immediately turned red. Gu Jiao went to get water. Jiao Jiao. I'll go too. Little Jing Kong immediately took out his small carrying pole and small wooden bucket. He carried them and went to get water with Gu Jiao. Gu Yan also wanted to go. In fact, he could only carry little Jing Kong's small carrying pole and small wooden bucket. But that was too embarrassing, wasn't it? Gu Yan tried to grab the wooden bucket next to the water tank with both hands, but he could not grab it for a long time. Gu Xiaoshan said, I'll do it. Gu Yan asked, You'll help me get water? Gu Xiaoshan thought, I just want a bucket to get water myself. But since you said so, I'll do it. Gu Xiaoshan helped Gu Yan to get water. He grew up being ordered around by Mrs. Lu. He had no place to use his strength, so he could only fetch water with a swishing sound. Gu Yan watched as Gu Xiaoshan poured buckets after buckets of water into the vat, and the corners of her lips curled up in satisfaction. Gu Xiaoshan helped him to get water. It was his. Gu Yan suddenly found Gu Xiaoshan more pleasing to the eye. When they were eating at the table, he and little Jing Kong waited for Gu Jiao to pick up food for them. There was only one sweet potato ball left. Xiaoshan can give it to me, he said generously. Okay. Little Jing Kong nodded seriously. He had no objection. After the meal, Gu Jiao cut a plate of fresh fruits and ate until there was only one piece left. Gu Jiao was most afraid of this kind of situation, so she usually calculated before giving out food. But Gu Xiaoshan came back today, so the rhythm of eating was disrupted. If it was in the past, they would argue about who should get the last piece of Jiao Jiao. But today, give it to Xiaoshan. He hasn't been at home these days, so he should eat more. Gu Yan said generously again. Little Jing Kong nodded. He still had no objection. Gu Xiaoshan felt that Gu Yan was quite good. He was not like what little Jing Kong said. As a reciprocal gift, he should show more concern for him. Gu Xiaoshan looked at Gu Yan and said, Are you used to living at home? He said at home. This word successfully pleased Gu Yan. Gu Yan smiled. I'm used to living here. Our rooms are very close to each other. They could communicate more. You live at the back. Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan were thinking about different things. When I'm not here, who do you play with? Gu Yan was stunned by this question. Gu Xiaoshan continued. What do you do during the day? That's right. What did Gu Yan do during the day? Gu Jiao was busy with the mountain affairs recently. She was rarely at home during the day. If she was at home, Gu Yan would stick to her. What if she was not at home? When little Jing Kong was at home, Gu Jiao was not worried about what he did during the day. He was a child with a good plan. He had a full day. Moreover, there were many children of the same age in the village. Little Jing Kong could go and play with them. Old Madam was often at home alone. However, Gu Jiao was not worried about her at all. She could tease Go Hua, talk to Xue Ningxiang's mother-in-law, or tell the villagers the play. Her life was more exciting than Gu Jiao's. Gu Yan was a very antisocial person. It was difficult for him to get along with the young people in the village. He had been here for several days, but he did not even go out of the door. He was a person who was waiting for death since he was born. He was not like little Jing Kong who would find things for himself to do. It was not that he did not want to find things, but there were many things that he could not do. He was most afraid of the sudden silence. Gu Xiaoshan did not feel the tense atmosphere at all. Aren't you bored? First kill. You can go and find Zhu Zi and the others during the day, but you are so soft and tender. You won't be able to play with them. Second kill. We don't have any land for you to plant. Third kill. You can't help me with the work. You can't do all the heavy work. Fourth kill. All right. You are so good looking. Why don't you go to school? Fifth kill. Gu Yan slumped on the back of the chair soullessly. What does being good-looking have to do with studying? I treated you as my brother, but you turned around and stabbed me in the back. Guyen did not expect this to happen even in his dreams. He hated studying. When he was in Hofu and the mountain villa, his family had invited a tutor for him. But he was either late or left early. Otherwise, he would fall asleep during class. He was not in good health. The tutor did not dare to scold him. He could not control him. In the end, he simply gave up. There was a tutor who stayed in the mountain villa, but the tutor only taught him for less than 10 days a year. In Gu Xiaoshuan's words, he was a slacker. Guyen looked at Gu Jiao with grievance. He wanted to tell her with his eyes. He did not want to go to school. No. Gu Jiao did not object to Guyen going to school in Little Jingkong. Naturally, she would not object to Guyen going to school now. Moreover, Guyen's condition was very stable now. Studying was not a problem. She could unconditionally tolerate other things, but there was no discussion about going to school. Gu Jiao automatically ignored Guyen's little eyes. You are old enough. It's time for you to go to school. Guyen roared in his heart. No. I am still a baby. Gu Jiao and Xiao Luling seriously discussed Guyan's school matters. Gu Jiao said, I still hope that he can stay with you as much as possible. This way you can take care of each other. The private schools in Tianxiang Academy and Little Jingkong are both good. Private school. Xiao Luling said after thinking about it. Tianxiang Academy was not easy to enter. Xiao Luling could ask Dean Li to open the back door for him. However, after entering the academy was the key. The students in Tianxiang Academy were all very basic. They were at least scholars. Most of them were scholars. Their learning progress was very fast. The atmosphere was also very tense. Gu Xiaoshan was an exception. He was simple-minded and unaffected. However, Guyen was not necessarily so. Gu Jiao also preferred private school. She looked at Little Jingkong. How is your private school? Little Jingkong said with a serious face. It's very good. The teachers are both virtuous and talented. Their lectures are very exciting. The teachers who wished they could be scolded by Little Jingkong 3 to 5 times a day. The overall standard of the private school was not as high as Tianxiang Academy. However, at the same time, the learning pressure was not as great as Tianxiang Academy. It was suitable for Guyen who could not survive in a high-pressure environment. Gu Jiao felt that this arrangement was perfect. What do you think? Gu Jiao looked at Guyen and asked. Can I refuse? Baby Gu asked weakly. If Marquis Gu arranged for him to study, he would have torn up all the old man's antique paintings. However, he could not be angry with Gu Jiao. He loved her so much. How could he be angry with her? Gu Jiao thought for a while and nodded. Then let's change the question. Will I send you to school tomorrow, or will your brother-in-law send you to school? Baby Gu. You send me to school. There seemed to be something wrong. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115411420. HTML Genius memorized the website's address. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 105. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. Gu Jiao made a school bag for Guyen overnight. At dawn the next day, Guyen was packed up by his sister and sent to Luo Dazhuang's bullock cart. Xiao Lulang asked Gu Xiaoshan to go to the academy to ask for an hour's leave for him. Then he and Gu Jiao sent Guyen and Little Jingkong to the private school. Xiao Lulang paid the money and went through the admission procedures. Little Jingkong asked Guyen, who was waiting in the corridor, "Which class do you think you will be in?" Guyen snorted with a cold face. Anyway, I won't be in the same class as you. Little Jing Kong studied elementary school. Gu Yan was already 14 years old. Of course, it was impossible for him to enter the elementary school class. He was assigned to Teacher Chang's class. The students in the class were about his age, and had some foundation in the 4 books and 5 classics. Gu Yan was somewhat satisfied with the assignment. However, before he could sit down, Teacher Chang brought in another new student. There was an empty seat beside Gu Yan. Teacher Chang let the new student sit beside Gu Yan. Gu Yan looked at the 3-headed little monk beside him. His eyes widened. Why are you in this class? Little Jing Kong spread his hands. I skipped a grade. Gu Yan. How could this work? Gu Yan's days began. He couldn't lose to a little monk, especially a little monk who was competing with him for favor. If the little monk could skip a grade, then so could he. Gu Yan, who had been eating and waiting for death, became serious for the first time. The 2 secret guards were confused. They had been assigned by the old Marquis to stay by the little young master's side for several years. It could be said that they had a clear understanding of the little young master's character. But why did the little young master seem to have changed into a different person after acknowledging his sister? Can you believe that he has actually started studying? After completing the topographic map, Gu Jiao began to plan for the reclamation of the wasteland. She marked out on the map where the medicinal fields were to be cultivated, where the crops were to be planted, and where the ponds were to be built. This mountain started from the back of Luo's second uncle's house. It was shaped like a small mountain range, with 1 big mountain top and 4 small mountain tops. Halfway up the first small mountain top, there was an open space. What should we do with that empty space? Ever since Marquis Gu's threat to divorce the 2 failed, he did not come again. Instead, it was Yao Shi who came a few times. Each time, she would bring some pastries that she had personally made. The old lady liked it very much. Yao Shi also brought a few sets of clothes that she had personally made for Gu Jiao. She knew that Gu Jiao needed to work, so her sleeping clothes were made of the finest silk. Her daytime clothes were mostly made of durable cotton. Nurse Fong did not quite understand her actions. Since eldest young miss is living a hard life, just give her more money. Why make clothes that even the maidservants would wear? Yao Shi only smiled when she heard this. Jiao Jiao does not need my money. Yao Shi had spent her entire life in the inner residence, living a life of dependence on men. Everyone thought that she should be like this. She herself also thought so, until she met her daughter. She felt that her daughter had lived the life she wanted. It was not money but freedom. Ever since Yao Shi was rejected the first time, she did not mention anything about living here. She also did not force Gu Jiao to call her mother. She only came to see Gu Jiao, and then let Gu Jiao treat her illness. After she finished her medicine, Gu Jiao gave her another 4 boxes. Gu Jiao interacted with Yao Shi as a doctor, so they were quite comfortable. Nurse Fong also came. She apologized to Gu Jiao for offending Gu Jiao earlier. The apology was sincere, but she still had some complaints about some of Gu Jiao's actions. She thought that Gu Jiao should go back with Yao Shi and properly show filial piety to Yao Shi and support her status as the eldest young miss. Because Gu Yan went to school, Yao Shi and Nurse Fong did not see him several times. However, there was one time when Gu Yan and little Jing Kong's private school was on holiday, and Yao Shi finally saw her son that she had not seen for a long time. Then, Yao Shi discovered that her son had gained weight. Yao Shi was so excited that she almost cried. Even in her dreams, she did not expect that her seriously ill son would grow into a little bun. Gu Yan was still not considered fat, but his original face was too thin, and his cheeks were sunken. Now there was baby fat on his cheeks, and he looked like a cute round little bun face. Yao Shi could not help but pinch it. It felt so good. Gu Jiao nodded in agreement. She pinched it every day so it felt so good. After getting on the carriage, Yao Shi cried with joy and said to Nurse Fong, "See, it was the right decision to let Yenner stay here, right?" Nurse Fong could not refute. Yes, the young master has put on weight, and his complexion is much better. In the past, Gu Yan would get angry every few days in the residence. He would not eat properly or sleep well. Yao Shi could only coax him and could not force him. After coming here, Gu Yan's bad temper calmed down a lot. He also had his own friends and playmates, Gu Xiaoshun, who killed him 5 times, and little Jing Kong, who learned how to hang and beat him. Mother. When Yao Shi's carriage arrived at the courtyard, Gu Jinyu had been pacing back and forth at the entrance for a long time. Yao Shi pulled her hand and used a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from her forehead. Have you been waiting for me here the whole time? The sun is so strong. Aren't you afraid of getting burned? Gu Jinyu did not sunbathe in the past, afraid that she would not look good if she got tanned. Gu Jinyu smiled sweetly. I missed you, mother. How was it? Did meeting elder sister and younger brother go smoothly? And your younger brother's private school is on holiday today. I saw him in Jiaojiao. They are both doing well. When Yao Shi said this, she could not hide the smile in her eyes. Gu Jinyu could not help but be dazed for a moment. She could not remember how long it had been since she had seen her mother so happy. What's wrong? Yao Shi sensed her daughter's absent-mindedness. Gu Jinyu returned to her senses and smiled. I also want to see them. When elder sister is no longer angry at me, I will go and visit her. Yao Shi said sincerely. She is not angry at you. You have misunderstood her. She is not a petty person. She is just used to her current life and does not wish to be disturbed. Gu Jinyu bowed. Yes, daughter should not make such assumptions about elder sister. Yao Shi smiled and let go of her hand to enter the room. Gu Jinyu's eyes flickered and she followed. Madam, the clothes for young miss have been dried. A young servant girl walked over with a set of soft silk pajamas. Gu Jinyu smiled in surprise and reached out to take the pajamas. Is this for me? After unfolding it, she realized that the size was not right. Her pajamas were not this long. Her fingers tightened. The young servant girl had not noticed her earlier and only saw her now. She was so embarrassed that her face turned white. The young servant girl did not know whether to take it or not. Gu Jinyu smiled. Mother, my clothes are too long. You should let elder sister wear them. Yao Shi had originally made the pajamas for Gu Jiao, but Gu Jinyu had already said so. If she told the truth, it would put the child in a difficult position. She warmly said. Then mother will make a new set for you. To be honest, she had not made clothes for Gu Jinyu in a long time. The main reason was that the clothes she made could not keep up with the trends in the capital. Gu Jinyu found them old-fashioned and did not like to wear them. Gu Jinyu affectionately held Yao Shi's arm. As long as mother makes it, Jinyu will wear it every day. Gu Jinyu stayed in Yao Shi's courtyard for dinner. Marquis Gu also came over. He had only recovered today after being beaten up. He was too embarrassed to say that he had been beaten by a servant girl. So he could only slander Huang Zhong for being drunk and causing the carriage to get into an accident. After dinner, Gu Jinyu had the servant girl carry a large box over. Yao Shi asked, What is this for? Gu Jinyu warmly said, This is a gift I chose for elder sister. I don't know what elder sister likes, so I prepared some of everything. Yao Shi had the servant girl take away the food and open the box. The items inside were laid out one by one. There were jewelry, antiques, calligraphy and paintings, needles and embroidery. It could be seen that he had put in a lot of effort. Everything was not ordinary. But the most eye-catching item was still a guqin. Yao Shi opened the box. When she saw the quaint 5-stringed guqin inside, her breathing stopped. Jinyu, this is. Gu Jinyu smiled and nodded. That's right, this is the lunar shadow fushi guqin. This was not an ordinary guqin. It was a gift from His Majesty. There was only one in the entire country of Zhao. The real antique fushi guqin had been lost in the previous dynasty. This guqin had come from Qin dynasty's top guqin master, Lunar Shadow. It was the most successful imitation of the fushi guqin to date, so it was also called the Lunar Shadow fushi guqin. Gu Jinyu had once played the guqin in Imperial Concubine Shu's palace, and had been heard by His Majesty. His Majesty praised her skill in the guqin, second only to the future wife of the third prince. The future wife of the third prince was the most talented woman in the country of Zhao. She had studied the guqin for 17 years, and had lived longer than Gu Jinyu. His Majesty felt that Gu Jinyu's talent was rare, and bestowed the Lunar Shadow fushi guqin to Gu Jinyu. Yao Shi felt that this was inappropriate. How can you give such a valuable thing to someone else? Gu Jinyu smiled sweetly. It's fine. His Majesty said that if he gave it to me, it's mine. I can do whatever I want with it. Yaoshi shook her head. What I mean is that it's too valuable. Marquis Gu was in complete agreement. That's right. Also, that girl, ahem, your elder sister doesn't know the Guqin. Wasn't giving it to her for nothing? What a waste. Gu Jinyu hugged the Guqin in his arms and lowered his eyes in grievance. But this is the best thing that Jinyu can offer. Jinyu likes sister and wants to make it up to sister. Jinyu can't wait to give sister my life. What's a mere Guqin worth? Yaoshi tucked a few strands of hair behind her ear and sighed. Silly child. In the end, Yaoshi did not want the Guqin. She kept everything else and would give it to Jiao Jiao another day. If Jiao Jiao liked it, she could keep it. If not, she would bring it back. Gu Jinyu hugged the Guqin and returned to her courtyard. Marquis Gu caught up to her and solemnly said, "Don't do this kind of thing in the future." What? Gu Jinyu looked at her father in confusion. Marquis Gu glanced at the Guqin in her arms and said, "Aren't you afraid that your mother would really accept it?" Gu Jinyu's eyes widened and dazedly said, "I originally wanted to give it to elder sister. Unfortunately, mother didn't want it." Marquis Gu let out a long sigh. "Fortunately, your mother didn't want it. Your elder sister grew up in the countryside and doesn't know music. She only knows how to make rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea. Giving something like this to her is a waste." Gu Jinyu's eyes were sincere as she said, "If elder sister is willing, I can teach elder sister." Marquis Gu snorted coldly. "That depends on whether she appreciates it. All right, keep the lunar shadow Fushi Guqin well. Don't take it out and give it away casually." Gu Jinyu lowered her eyes. No one could make a better imitation of the Fushi Guqin. She never intended to give it away. The private school was on holiday, but Tianxiang Academy wasn't. Gu Jiao was cooking dinner in the kitchen. She calculated that Xiao Lulang and Gu Xiaoshun should be arriving at the entrance of the village, so she started to cook the last dish. "Jiao Jiao Jiao Jiao, my abacus is missing." Little Jing Kong ran into the kitchen helplessly. Gu Jiao filled the pot with water and covered it with a lid. "Don't worry, I'll help you look for it." Little Jing Kong brought back many things from the temple. Gu Jiao placed them in 2 large boxes for him. Although he was a child, Gu Jiao still respected his privacy and wouldn't touch his things. His boxes were very messy and had all sorts of things. "Which box is it in?" Gu Jiao asked. "This one." "No, it seems to be this one." Although little Jing Kong was a very well-planned child, he was still not very good at organizing things. Gu Jiao rummaged through the box on the left, and soon found a shiny golden abacus. It was made of pure gold. Gu Jiao asked in a daze, "It's this?" "Yes." Little Jing Kong nodded his head like he was pounding garlic. Gu Jiao asked, "Who gave it to you?" "Master." Little Jing Kong took the abacus and started tapping it. He had an abacus lesson today, so he had to revise. Was his master so rich? He actually gave him a golden abacus? Gu Jiao couldn't help but ask, "Do you know that it's made of gold?" Little Jing Kong nodded. "Yes, I know. Master has many abacuses, so I specially picked this one." "Why?" "It's beautiful." Gu Jiao didn't know what to say. Gu Jiao put the things on the ground into the abacus one by one. When she picked up a big object wrapped in a rag, she suddenly heard the sound of a string. Gu Jiao opened it and found that it was a guqin. It was very shabby and didn't even have a case, but the sound was good. The sound just now was very pleasant. Gu Jiao plucked it again. The sound was really good. Little Jing Kong looked at Gu Jiao. "Oh, Jiao Jiao, do you know how to play the guqin?" Gu Jiao didn't answer his question but asked him, "Do you know how to play?" Little Jing Kong thought seriously. "I know a little, but I don't like it." Gu Jiao didn't understand. "Why is there a guqin if you don't like it?" Little Jing Kong sighed like a little adult. "Sigh, it's a gift from master. The things inside were all given by him." Gu Jiao found that there was a blackened spot on the upper right corner of the guqin. Little Jing Kong explained, "There was a time when there was no more firewood, so master threw the guqin in to burn it. But it didn't burn for a long time, so he took it out again." Gu Jiao was stunned. Even if it was a broken guqin, it shouldn't be used as firewood to burn it. right? What kind of master did you have? Little Jing Kong said, Jiao Jiao, if you like it, I'll give it to you. Gu Jiao stroked the guqin in her hand and inadvertently glanced at the two words engraved on the bottom of the guqin. Fushi. Digression invisible little nouveau riche. Little Jing Kongo, asterisk, asterisk. Oh, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115408760. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 106. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. During dinner, the whole family saw little Jing Kong playing with a golden abacus. They all felt that their eyes were about to go blind. Little Jing Kong didn't have much concept of gold. He only knew that copper coins and silver coins were the only two currencies that his family had ever used. As he said, he liked this golden abacus purely because it looked good. Gu Jiao thought. Probably every child likes things that are made of gold and silver. Any bead on the golden abacus could be sold to feed the family for a year. However, they still had moral integrity. No matter how poor the family was, they wouldn't have any ideas about little Jing Kong's abacus. At night, Gu Jiao helped little Jing Kong organize all his things again. She found that other than the golden abacus, Buddhist scriptures, and other books, there were no other valuable things. They were all old and shabby things that didn't seem to be worth much. Gu Jiao breathed a sigh of relief. That's right. It's scary for a monk to have too much money, okay? It seemed that little Jing Kong's master doted on him very much. Even though he was very poor, little Jing Kong liked the golden abacus and spent all his money to make one for him. There were abacuses in the private school, so the students didn't need to bring their own. Therefore, little Jing Kong only took out the golden abacus when he was revising at home. He didn't bring it to the private school. It saved a lot of trouble. The next day, Xiao Lulang took the family's eldest child, second child, and third child to school as usual. Madame Yao brought Gu Jinyu's gifts to the house. As expected, Gu Jiao didn't accept any of them. Madame Yao didn't force her. Nanny Fong advised softly, Madam, you should persuade eldest Mississippi. Although second Miss isn't her biological sister, she should accept the gifts. Nanny Fong wasn't speaking up for Gu Jinyu. She wasn't her biological sister, so she was already flattering her by giving her a look. However, there were times when people had to do things in front of everyone. Eldest Miss should have the bearing of a eldest Mississippi Yao Shi, however warmly said. Jiao Jiao, as long as you're happy, that's good. In this world, there is no reason to force someone to accept someone else's good intentions. Nanny Fong sighed. After Yao Shi left, Gu Jiao went to town to order iron tools. Zhao country had strict control over iron and salt. Gu Jiao needed a lot of farm tools, so she had to go to the county government to register and get a permit. Gu Jiao went to the county government. The county magistrate personally received Gu Jiao. He asked with a smile, Madam Xiao, why did you come to the yamen? But who in the village is restless? His question stunned Gu Jiao. If he hadn't reminded her, Gu Jiao would have almost forgotten about those restless people in the village. When the Gu family was suppressed by Marquis Gu, Magistrate Lu was the first blade. He was the one who removed old Master Gu from his position as Li Zheng. Later on, he was the one who arranged for the grain delivery to Xiao Lulang. Of course, he didn't know Gu Jiao's identity. He only knew that she had some relationship with the Marquis family, and that she was Scholar Zhao's wife. Thus, he treated her with extra courtesy. Madam Xiao, please forgive me for offending you at that time. He was talking about how he was ordered by Marquis Gu to put Gu Jiao and little Jing Kong in the prison carriage. Gu Jiao said. It's okay. I came here today to make some iron tools. Is it convenient for Magistrate Lu to stamp them with your official seal? Magistrate Lu hurriedly said. It's convenient. It's convenient. How much does Madame Xiao want? Gu Jiao reported the number. Magistrate Lu was shocked. So much? Can I ask Madame Xiao what they are for? Gu Jiao showed her land deed. I bought a mountain and want to open up a wasteland. Magistrate Lu understood that opening up a wasteland was not a trivial matter. It required a lot of manpower and material resources, so it was not surprising that she needed so many farming tools. Generally speaking, this kind of document would take a few days to go through the process. However, because Magistrate Lu handled it personally, it didn't take long for Gu Jiao to finish it. Before leaving, Magistrate Lu smiled and said to Gu Jiao, "If you need anything from the Yamen, please don't hesitate." Gu Jiao nodded slightly, thanked him and left. As soon as she stepped out of the gate of the county Yamen, she saw the second boss running towards her, panting. Miss Gu, I finally found you. I went to the village just now. Your great-aunt said you came to the county Yamen. Are you all right? I'm fine. I just want to buy some iron tools and stamp my official seal. Gu Jiao said and looked at him strangely. But why did you go to the village so early in the morning? The second boss rubbed his hands and didn't know what to say. Gu Jiao said, "Tell me, where is the patient?" Ahem. The second boss gestured for Gu Jiao to give him the document with the official seal. Gu Jiao gave it to him and he asked, "What kind of iron tools do you want? How much do you want?" Gu Jiao gave him the list. He gave it to the coachman and said, "Go to the blacksmith shop in a moment and get it done." Yes. The coachman took the document and list. "Let's talk inside the carriage," the second boss said to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao got into the carriage with him. "Let's go to Huichun Hall first," the second boss ordered the coachman. The coachman obeyed and waved the whip to start the carriage. He took the two to the medical center first, and then to the blacksmith shop. The second boss wiped the sweat from his forehead and sighed. "There's a patient who's a bit difficult to deal with. I had no choice but to come to you. I owe you a favor this time." Gu Jiao paused and said, "No need. Count this as my consultation this month." The second boss was stunned. "Ah? Then you're not going to young Master Gu's place?" Gu Jiao nodded and said, "Yes, I'm not going. He's already living in my house." Gu Yan went to the private school today, and the second boss only saw his grandaunt. Naturally, he didn't know that Gu Yan had already moved into Gu Jiao's house. The second boss nodded thoughtfully. "I see that young Master Gu's condition has improved greatly. It's fine if you don't go. You can go next month." Gu Jiao didn't say anything. After a while, they arrived at the medical center. When Gu Jiao entered the main hall, she understood why the second boss was in such a hurry to find her. The medical center had already been emptied of patients. All the doctors and workers, including shopkeeper Wang, were restrained by a group of guards wearing embroidered clothes. The main hall was filled with a dangerous and quiet atmosphere. A young man in his early 20s with handsome eyebrows and cold facial features walked over. There was a treasured sword at his waist. He coldly glanced at the second boss, and also glanced at Gu Jiao from the corner of his eyes. However, he clearly didn't care about Gu Jiao. "Where is the doctor you went to invite?" The second boss tried to calm down and looked at Gu Jiao. "It's her." The young guard frowned. "An ugly girl?" Gu Jiao changed into the clothes made by Yao Shi. They weren't shabby, but she still looked like a commoner. It was hard for people to connect her with a doctor who saved lives. Moreover, she was still so young. "It's her." The second boss wiped away his cold sweat. "She is the most skilled doctor in our rejuvenation hall. If even she can't cure him, then no one in town can." The young man looked at Gu Jiao with suspicion. She was a bit young, but she had a pair of eyes that could see through life and death. They were cold and emotionless. The young man knitted his brows and finally said, "Come with me." Gu Jiao carried the small basket on her back, and went with the young man to the side room in the backyard. There were dozens of guards guarding the backyard. Almost every 5 steps, there was one guard. The entire backyard was packed. Gu Jiao also noticed that there were several guards hiding on the roof and in the alley. With such a strict defense, the other party was afraid that they had a great background. However, Gu Jiao didn't ask anything. She was calm from beginning to end. You wait outside. The young man was also a guard. With an unfriendly tone, he stopped the second boss outside the door and let Gu Jiao in. Just as the young guard was about to step in, Gu Jiao suddenly said to him, "You also wait outside." The young guard. Without waiting for the young guard to react, Gu Jiao closed the door with a bang. The young man. The second boss couldn't hold back his laughter. The more he interacted with Gu Jiao, the more he found that she was actually very protective of her own people. There was no limit to how protective she could be. There was a landscape screen in the room. Outside the screen, there were two servants who were waiting to serve. The servants were not young. They were about the same age as Gu Zhonghai and Gu Chonglu. However, they had a particularly feminine temperament. They didn't seem like normal men. When Gu Jiao was about to go around the screen, one of the servants stopped her. "Please wait." "What do you want?" Gu Jiao asked. The servant took a piece of cloth and was about to cover Gu Jiao's eyes. Gu Jiao blocked his hand and said indifferently, "How can I treat people with my eyes covered?" The servant said, "You can feel the pulse." Gu Jiao said coldly, "Chinese medicine is about looking, smelling, asking, and feeling the pulse. Do you think I'm a god just by feeling the pulse?" The servant frowned and was about to scold her when the man behind the screen said in a hoarse voice, "Let her in." The servant immediately bowed to the screen respectfully, "Yes." Gu Jiao went around the screen and came to the bed. The man was lying in the curtain. Only a skinny hand was exposed. Gu Jiao sat down on the stool and felt his pulse. "You can see what you want to see," he said, and was about to open the curtain. Gu Jiao suddenly grabbed his wrist. "No, I don't want to see your face." Would she still be alive after seeing such a big shot's face? Gu Jiao covered his face with the curtain. Only the area below his waist was exposed. After the examination, the man's face turned red. Gu Jiao's face was as calm as water. The man cleared his throat. "May I ask what disease I have?" Gu Jiao looked at the screen. The man understood and said, "They are trustworthy people. You can just say it." Oh. The patient didn't care, so Gu Jiao had no scruples as a doctor. "Venereal disease," Gu Jiao said bluntly. "Nonsense." A servant outside the screen rushed over and stared at Gu Jiao fiercely. "My family." Before she could finish, she was stopped by the man's stern voice. "Shut up. Back off." The servant clenched his teeth and retreated behind the screen. "Please don't blame me if I offend you." The man's voice and breath didn't have much panic. It was obvious that he had been through a lot. "You know about it, right?" Gu Jiao asked. The man nodded sadly. A doctor had seen him and said that he had venereal disease. But he didn't dare to believe it. He never went out to have sex. How did he get venereal disease? Gu Jiao didn't have much interest in the man's private affairs. She only told him about the transmission of venereal disease. As for how he got it, he had to figure it out himself. Gu Jiao continued, "Your disease has been in the second stage for some time. If you don't treat it, you will enter the late stage." The first and second stages of venereal disease were relatively easy to cure. Although the late stage could be controlled, the damage to the body was irreversible. The man was silent for a long time and asked in a low voice, "Can you cure me?" Gu Jiao glanced at him. "If not, why did I come in?" The man was stunned. You can really cure me?" Gu Jiao put down the small basket. "I will try my best. But you better let them go out first. They are always in a panic here. It will affect my treatment." The man looked at the screen and said, "Did you hear me? Go out." "Master, do you want me to say it again?" "I don't dare." The two servants went out worriedly and helplessly. "Why did you come out?" the young guard asked. One of the servants said, "Master asked us to come out. We can't do anything. But she is just a little girl in her teens. She doesn't have the strength to truss a chicken. She doesn't know martial arts. She can't do anything to our master." Before he finished his words, The young man clenched his fist and rushed into the room. But before he could completely open the door, he was kicked out by Gu Jiao. The young guard was like a sandbag that was hit. With a bang, he hit a big tree and hung upside down on the branch. The young guard spat out a mouthful of rotten leaves. "Didn't you say that you don't have the strength to truss a chicken?" Gu Jiao inserted the door bolt and took out a penicillin skin test from the small medicine box. "Give me your hand." The man looked at the strange needle through the curtain and was inexplicably scared. "What are you going to do?" Gu Jiao said. "I am going to give you an injection. If you want to be cured, you have to be obedient." The man expressed that he didn't want to be obedient. Gu Jiao said earnestly, "Alas, I am the doctor of the medical center. The whole medical center is controlled by your subordinates. Do you think I can still escape unscathed if I hurt you?" The man felt that Gu Jiao's words were not unreasonable, but he didn't suspect that Gu Jiao had ulterior motives. He was simply scared. Gu Jiao decisively grabbed his wrist. She was too good at dealing with disobedient patients. The man didn't even have time to react before Gu Jiao finished the skin test. The man looked at the small bag on his wrist. The best drug to treat venereal disease was penicillin. Unfortunately, there was no penicillin in ancient times, so it was very troublesome to cure it. There were few cases of complete recovery. This was also why the man felt that he had no hope. However, this disease was not a terminal illness for Gu Jiao. The result of the skin test showed that he was not allergic. Gu Jiao held the needle and walked towards him. "Bear with it." When the man saw that the needle was several times bigger than the previous one, he was so scared that his hands and feet fluttered. Facts proved that no matter how powerful a man was, he might be afraid of injections. Ugh! The man bit the pillow and endured the most terrible torture so far. Gu Jiao packed up and said to him, "Isolate him and come back in 7 days." After Steward Zhou negotiated with Xiao Lulang, he immediately sent a pigeon back to the Lin family in the provincial capital. When Master Lin found out that Xiao Lulang was willing to teach his son, but he wanted his son to personally visit him to learn, Master Lin packed his son up and sent him over without another word. Therefore, on a sunny afternoon, the white and fat Lin Qingye appeared at the gate of Tianxiang Academy. Lin Qingye's face was young. He was already 21 years old, but he looked like he was 16 or 17 years old. He held the heavy bag and asked nervously and uneasily, Is this here?" He stuttered since he was young, and the more nervous he was, the more he stuttered. Steward Zhou secretly shook his head. Such a smart child, but he stuttered. He didn't know if he would be laughed at when he went to school. That's right, Lin Qingye had always hired a tutor at home because he was worried that he would be laughed at when he went to school. But now there was no other way. Although Lin Qingye was a scholar, he was only a scholar. If he wanted to stand out from the other scholars, he still needed to put in a lot of effort. "It's here," Steward Zhou said earnestly. "Scholar Xiao will come out in a moment. Do you remember what I said to you, 6th young master?" "Yes, I remember." Lin Qingye nodded. "Speak less." Steward Zhou nodded happily. "Yes, speak less. This way, no one will find out that 6th young master stutters." "Yes." Lin Qingye lowered his head. The two didn't have to wait long before Xiao Lulang came out from the private school. Behind him were Feng Lin and Gu Xiaoshan. Recently, Feng Lin had also eaten with them. Steward Zhou walked forward with a smile, clasped his hands in greeting. "Scholar Xiao." His gaze fell on the person behind Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang introduced, "This is my younger brother, Gu Xiaoshan. My classmate, Feng Lin." Steward Zhou smiled politely. "Ah, so it's little brother Gu and little brother Feng. Sorry for the disrespect." Feng Lin clasped his hands in return. Gu Xiaoshan glanced at him and asked Xiao Lulang, "Brother-in-law, who is he?" Xiao Lulang said, "The steward of the Lin family, surnamed Zhou." "Ah, it's him." Gu Xiaoshan of course knew that his brother-in-law was going to be a teacher. In the past 6 months, his brother-in-law seemed to have been possessed. His grades improved rapidly, and there were many people who wanted to learn from him. Steward Zhou pulled Lin Qingye over and introduced him to Xiao Lulang. "This is our family's 6th young master, Lin Qingye. He's introverted and doesn't speak much. I'll have to trouble Scholar Xiao to take care of him in the future. Xiao Lulang looked at him and said, There's an exam today. You can only enter if you pass the exam. Do you understand? Lin Qingye nodded. Yes, I understand. Steward Zhou was secretly relieved that he didn't give himself away. Actually, it didn't matter if he didn't pass the exam. At most, he would be shoved into Headmaster Li's Zhongjing Hall. He could even skip classes to tutor him. But this time Xiao Lulang didn't say anything. Xiao Lulang led Lin Qingye to find Headmaster Li. In order to win over his beloved disciple, Headmaster Li went all out. For the first time in his life, he let someone get in through the back door. However, Lin Qingye didn't disappoint. He finished all the exam papers that Headmaster Li gave him. His grades for the essay and essay were acceptable. His 8-part essay was a little worse, but he was still qualified to be admitted. He was assigned to Xiao Liulang's class B and sat at the same table as Xiao Lulang. Since Lin Qingye didn't live in the dormitory, Steward Zhou spent a lot of money to buy a house in the school district nearby. Xiao Lulang took out bits of time every day to tutor him. He would tutor him for 2 hours in the afternoon and an hour after school. If he came early in the morning, he could tutor him for another hour. Why don't Scholar Xiao also stay here? Wouldn't it save you from a long journey? Steward Zhou suggested with a smile. My wife will be angry. Xiao Lulang heartlessly refused. Steward Zhou. Since he couldn't keep Xiao Lulang overnight, Steward Zhou had to find another way. For example, he replaced second Uncle Luo's small broken ox cart with his own luxurious horse carriage. Another example was to provide a place for lunch and afternoon rest for Xiao Lulang and his group. Gu Yan and little Jing Kong were people who needed afternoon naps. It was better for them to lie down in the wing room than to lie down in the classroom. Xiao Lulang had no objection to these two arrangements. Because they tutored Lin Qingye, they returned to the village late. But knowing that Xiao Lulang wanted to earn money to support his family, Gu Yan and little Jing Kong had no complaints. Gu Xiaoshan concentrated on carving wood and had no complaints. Are you hungry? Why don't we have dinner here? Steward Zhou said to Gu Yan and his 2 brothers. The 3 of them said in unison, No. Steward Zhou was shocked. No, isn't the food here delicious? It's all cooked by the chef. How can your wife's cooking be better than the chef's? The 3 of them. Jiao Jiao's my sisters. Cooking is so delicious that you mortals can't imagine it. The provincial examination was held once every 3 years. Xiao Lulang was lucky to pass the county examination this year. However, many candidates had waited for 2 years. With the approach of the provincial examination, the atmosphere in the academy was unprecedentedly tense. Even the teachers no longer went to the examination every day and began to simulate the provincial examination for the examinees. Xiao Lulang also set questions for Lin Qingye. His questions were more profound and tricky than the teachers. Lin Qingye seriously suspected that Xiao Lulang didn't sleep every night to read the 4 books and 5 classics to give him sentences that no one had ever memorized before. At noon, Gu Yan and little Jing Kong went to the wing room to rest. Gu Xiaoshan was carving wood in the courtyard. Lin Qingye felt a headache coming on because of Xiao Liulang's questions. Steward Zhou was guarding at the door. Suddenly, a servant came over. Steward Zhou moved aside and whispered, What's wrong? The post station was flooded. Brother Zheng was washed away by the water. He returned to the Lin mansion a few days ago and is now recuperating in the Lin mansion. Brother Zheng was the young man who went to invite Gu Jiao earlier. He was the son of a deputy steward of the Lin family. Last time, after Xiao Lulang refused to go to the Lin mansion, the young man surnamed Zheng went back home. Who would have thought that he would encounter a flood on the way? When did it happen? Half a month ago. The journey to the provincial capital was slow, because they went up the mountain. But the journey from the provincial capital was fast because they went down the mountain. Therefore Lin Shui, who came from the provincial capital, perfectly avoided the flood. But if Xiao Lulang and Steward Zhou went to the provincial capital, they would have encountered the flood at the post station like the young man surnamed Zheng. Xiao Lulang came out after tutoring Lin Qingye. Seeing Steward Zhou's expression, he couldn't help asking, What happened? It's like this. Steward Zhou told him about the flood at the post station half a month ago. Xiao Luleng knew that post station. It was the only post station on the official road. In other words, as long as they went to the provincial capital, they would definitely live in that post station. Judging from the time, it was just right for them to catch the flood. Lin Qingye couldn't catch up. It was faster to travel from the provincial capital. He had already passed the post station in half a month. Xiao Luleng thought about how Gu Jiao stopped him from going to the provincial capital. This was not the first time such a coincidence happened. Because she asked him to buy osmanthus cake, he avoided the medical dispute at the medical center. Because she came to find him for lunch, he avoided the collapse of the dormitory. And because she wanted to spend the night in town, he didn't catch the snowstorm on the way. Once or twice was a coincidence, but 3 or 4 times was a bit thought-provoking. In the evening, Xiao Luleng went to the kitchen to help Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao cooked, and he added wood to the fire. The 2 pots on the stove were used. One was steaming sweet potatoes and cornbread, while the other was boiling fungus soup. The thick soup gurgled, and the stove was very fragrant. Xiao Luleng broke a dead branch and put it in the stove. He said casually, "Today, Steward Zhou said that there was a flood at the Qishan post station half a month ago. Fortunately, I didn't go to the provincial capital. Otherwise, I would have been washed away by the flood." Gu Jiao. "Oh." Xiao Luleng looked at her. "Aren't you surprised?" Gu Jiao paused. "Oh." Xiao Luleng. Xiao Luleng asked her, "Did you know that there would be a flood?" Gu Jiao said calmly, "No." Xiao Luleng looked at her deeply. He lowered his head and broke a dead branch. "This time, I plan to live in the Lin family's residence in the provincial capital." Gu Jiao's hand that was holding the spatula paused. "Didn't I say that I won't live there?" Xiao Luleng said seriously. "It's convenient to live in the Lin family's residence. Moreover, I've asked Steward Zhou. Steward Zhou said that although the daughters of the Lin family are beautiful, they are all married. None of them are unmarried. You don't have to worry about that." Was she worried about the daughters of the Lin family? She was worried about her cousins of the Lin family. What kind of good fortune would he have for the rest of his life? Did he still want it? Gu Jiao held her breath, but she couldn't spit it out. Her little face instantly darkened. Xiao Luleng almost laughed at the way she wanted to flare up but couldn't. The conversation was about to continue. At this time, little Jing Kong ran in angrily with a little chick in his arms. "Jiao Jiao, Gu Yangiji's dog bit my little chick." After Gu Yan's little puppy also moved into the house, the whole family experienced what it meant to be in a real mess. As long as the little puppy and the little chick came out of the cage at the same time, they would be able to bite the chicken feathers all over the floor. The little puppy was big, but it was no match for the mini chicks. It also knew how to set up a formation. Both sides were fearless when they fought. Gu Jiao asked him, "Did your little chick peck Gu Yangiji's little puppy?" Little Jing Kong instantly fell silent. Little Jing Kong raised his head and said cutely, "The food smells so good. I suddenly remembered that I haven't finished my homework. I'm going to do it now." The little monk, who was the one who complained first, jumped out of the house. He was sure that he was extremely cute. Jiao Jiao was so charmed by him that she forgot to get angry. As he jumped, he stuffed the little chick back into the chicken coop. Then, in a spurt of energy, he ran away and disappeared. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115376718. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 107. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. After being interrupted by little Jing Kong, the topic just now was not continued. 7 days later, Gu Jiao went to the medical center again. The medical center was cleared out again. Gu Jiao frowned. She forgot to tell them not to ruin the medical center's business last time. The young guard who was kicked up the tree by Gu Jiao last time had not arrived. He brought the other guards to clear out the medical center first. Gu Jiao was a little angry. Huichan Hall was the only medical center in town. Many patients came to see the doctor every day. If they were all kicked out, it would delay the patient's treatment. The man did not let Gu Jiao wait for long. He wore a bamboo hat and entered the medical center. There was a layer of gauze outside the bamboo hat, which covered his head appropriately. He could see outside, but the people outside could not see his face. Mississippi, the man greeted her with a pleasant expression. His tone was lighter than last time. Mrs. Medicine is really magical. My condition has not worsened. There was even a slight improvement. He did not say this for the time being. He was afraid that it was just his illusion. Gu Jiao was not in a hurry to see him. Instead, she said, "In the future, you are not allowed to occupy the medical center. The medical center is not your private territory. You have no right to ask other patients to leave." The young guard gritted his teeth. "What do you know? Do you know who my master is?" "Shut up." The man stopped the young guard. The young guard realized that he almost said something wrong and shut his mouth resentfully. Gu Jiao said lightly, "I don't care who you are. In short, you are a patient here. All patients are treated equally. You are not judged by your status, but by the severity of your condition." The man slapped the table and said passionately, "Not judged by status but by the severity of your condition. If all the doctors in Zhao country can be like you, why worry about not being able to cure the people? You are a woman, but you have such awareness. Take off your pants." Gu Jiao interrupted him. The corner of the man's mouth twitched. Couldn't he wait for him to finish flattering him? Gu Jiao began to examine him. All the servants had left, leaving only the doctor and the patient in the room. Even so, the man's face still turned red. On the other hand, Gu Jiao was extremely calm. The man finally couldn't help but ask with a red face, "Miss, how can you be so calm?" Gu Jiao said, "Oh, I've seen a lot." "Man, what kind of vicious words were these?" "The second injection today." Gu Jiao took out the penicillin. The fear of being injected surged into his heart, and the man panicked. "Wait, can I?" "Ugh." The man's body stiffened and he bit the blanket. The current dynasty's provincial examination was around the same time as the previous dynasties, in the 8th month. However, in order to get to the provincial capital early, some of the examinees from the more remote areas set off from their homes in the 6th month. Xiao Lulang was escorted by the Lin family's 1,000-mile horse carriage, so there was no need for him to be in such a hurry. However, he couldn't leave too late either. The two of them made breakfast in the kitchen. Gu Jiao asked Xiao Lulang, "When do you plan on leaving?" "In 3 days. Xiao Lulang said. "Is Feng Lin going as well?" "Yes, he's going as well." "That's good. We'll have someone to look after on the road." Gu Jiao was at ease with Feng Lin's work. He might not take good care of himself, but he would definitely take good care of Xiao Lulang. Thinking of something, Gu Jiao asked, "Will we pass by Song County?" Song County was Feng Lin's hometown. Xiao Lulang, his mother, and his older brother had also lived in Song County. Xiao Lulang shook his head. "No, the direction is different. If we go to the capital by water, we can pass by." Song County had a canal, and the imperial court had 2 major salt transportation routes. One of them was near Song County. Gu Jiao said, "Oh." On New Year's Eve, Feng Lin's family had shed many tears. If he could go home, it would be very comforting. Gu Jiao said, "Then I wish him success in the provincial examination. Next year, he'll go to the capital to take the exam. While he's there, he'll go home." These words had no hidden meaning, but Gu Jiao felt that something was wrong. How could she forget that Principal Li had told her that Xiao Lulang did not want to go to the capital to take the exam? She had never tried to persuade him to do anything. He had his own life and his own choices. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. It was the day that Xiao Lulang left for the provincial capital. Steward Zhou had rushed the carriage to the village early. He knew that they needed to load the luggage, so he had the carriage stop in front of Gu Jiao and Xiao Liulong's door. The Lin family was the richest family in the provincial capital, and was the overlord of the salt transportation. Their family's carriage was even more luxurious than the marquis's. There were 4 tall and powerful horses that were taller than a grown man. According to the rules, merchants were not allowed to enjoy such a high-standard carriage. This was a privilege given to the Lin family by the imperial family. The carriage was large enough, and there was even a soft couch inside. It was an ancient caravan. Gu Jiao was quite satisfied with sitting in this carriage to go to the provincial capital. There were many people in the village who came to watch the fun, but they did not dare to approach because of the guards and the horses. Only Go Hua, who always grew grass next door, did not fear the tiger. He climbed onto the carriage with all his might. Xue Ningxiang awkwardly wanted to carry him down, but Go Hua refused. Steward Zhou smiled and said, "It's fine. Let him sit on the carriage. Just make sure he doesn't fall." Xue Ningxiang understood that she was riding on the coattails of her neighbors. She was a young widow in the village, and had been looked down upon by many people behind her back. Sometimes people were not evil, but the environment was cruel. When evil became a custom, good people would also raise their butcher's knife. But today, she, a young widow who was looked down upon by others, could openly sit in the carriage with her son in her arms, which the villagers did not dare to approach. She suddenly felt a sense of exultation and elation. They were going to be back for a long time, so Gu Jiao prepared a lot of luggage for them. Feng Lin jumped off the carriage to help her carry the luggage, and listened to her explain what was in each bag. Little Jing Kong found his brother-in-law and started a conversation with him. The location was still the latrine. Xiao Lulang was speechless. What was the little monk's weird habit? Did he have to take off his pants to talk to people? Little Jing Kong sat on his small toilet bowl majestically. Those who did not know him would think that he was sitting on the dragon throne. He was very domineering. He said seriously, "You are going to leave home again. This time, you will be away for a long time. Take care of yourself and don't let the family worry." Xiao Lulang did not want to hear the little trumpet girl's voice at this time. Little Jing Kong continued, "Also, you are a mature examinee. Don't rely on others to motivate you. You must learn to be the first in the exam." Xiao Lulang was speechless. "Are you the one who helps me to be the first in the exam every time? Okay, stop talking so much. Take care." After saying that, little Jing Kong stretched out his little hand, intending to pat his brother-in-law's shoulder like an elder. However, he forgot that he was sitting on the small toilet bowl, so he only patted Xiao Liulong's butt. Xiao Lulang turned his head to look at the little hand that was grabbing his butt. He was speechless. There were no classes in the private school today. Gu Yan was a person who liked to sleep in, but he still asked Gu Xiaoshan to wake him up and get up to say goodbye to his brother-in-law. Then he went back to his room to sleep. "Is this all?" Feng Lin took the last bag and asked Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao nodded. "Yes, this is Liulong's food. I also made some pickles for you to eat on the way." "Okay." Feng Lin happily went to the kitchen to get the pickles. Seeing him come out with a big jar of pickles, Steward Zhou thought to himself that the Lin family was the richest family in the provincial capital. How could they lack good food? Not long after Steward Zhou tasted the pickles, he began to complain that Feng Lin did not bring 2 more jars. This time, they were really done packing. Gu Jiao sent Xiao Lulang to the carriage. Seeing that the carriage was about to leave, Madame Zhou and Gu Dashun, who had not appeared for many days, rushed over. "Jianyang, Jianyang." Madame Zhou changed her usual cold face and put on an extremely flattering smile. "Are you going to the provincial capital?" While talking, Madame Zhou and Gu Jiao had already arrived in front of Gu Jiao. Gu Dashun was a little reluctant to come over. Holding the bag, he was a dozen steps behind them. Xiao Lulang frowned slightly. Gu Jiao lowered the curtain, indicating that he did not need to come down. Gu Jiao turned to look at Madame Zhou. "What are you doing here?" "Hey, look at what you're saying. My nephew's son-in-law is going to the provincial capital to take the exam. How can I not send him off? Look, this is a little gift from eldest aunt." As Madame Zhou spoke, She handed a basket of eggs to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao knew what she was up to and did not reach out to take it. Madame Zhou was embarrassed. She gave her husband a look. Gu Jiao coughed lightly and said to Gu Jiao, "Jiaonyang, the journey to the provincial capital this time is long. Liulong's legs are inconvenient. Why don't we let Deshun go with him? They can take care of each other on the way." "Who will take care of whom?" Gu Jiao asked bluntly. Even if Xiao Lulang was a little cripple, he usually did more work than Gu Dashun, who was able-bodied. Gu Dashun was spoiled since he was young. He did not know anything other than studying. He would be a burden if they brought him along. Gu Zhanghai choked. He was Gu Dashuan's biological father. How could he not understand that Gu Dashun could not take care of himself when he left home? His clothes in the academy were brought home to be washed. If not, how could he beg Gu Jiao to let Xiao Lulang bring him along? Originally, Gu Zhanghai planned to bring Gu Dashun to the provincial capital himself. But life was hard at home, and they could not afford the travel expenses of two people. He also heard that Xiao Lulang was tutoring people recently. The other party was from a wealthy family in the provincial capital, and did not lack money. With Deshun's help, not only did they save on travel expenses, they also did not have to fork out money for food and clothing. He advised earnestly, "Jiaonyang, eldest uncle has wronged you in the past, but your eldest brother has never offended you, right? Your eldest brother is focused on his studies, and does not know about our grievances. He has never interfered. Your parents doted on your eldest brother so much when they were alive. How can you bear to see your eldest brother suffer?" Gu Sanlang and his wife did dote on Gu Dashun when they were alive. But how did Gu Dashun, who was loved by them, treat Gu Jiao's mother? When Gu Jiao's mother was bullied, did Gu Dashun stand up for his sister? In that dream, Gu Dashun even framed his own brother-in-law, Xiao Lulang, for his own selfish reasons. He did not do so in the end, not because he found his conscience, but because Gu Jiao intervened. So even if the grievances between Gu Jiao and the elders were ignored, Gu Dashun was definitely not innocent. Zhou sure helped. "That's right, Jiaonyang. Just let them bring Deshun along. Look at how spacious this carriage is. One more person won't be a problem. Just let Deshun sit for a while. The coffin underground is also quite spacious. Why don't you go in and lie down?" The matriarch casually walked out. The villagers laughed. Liulong's grandaunt's eloquence really did not disappoint. Zhou Shi almost choked on her words. "How can you say that?" The matriarch spread her hands. "I use my mouth to speak. Could it be that you use your butt?" Zhou Shi was so angry that she fell backwards. The villagers laughed until they fell down. She was mocking Zhou Shi for her nonsense. But Zhou Shi was also to blame for digging her own grave. Did she not know that there was no joke in the world that the matriarch could not answer? In any case, she was the champion of the last imperial harem. The 3,000 concubines in the harem were all obedient to her. What was a mere Zhou Shi to her? "He's not even a child of your Gu family. Why are you still blaming us?" The matriarch pointed at Gu Dashun, who was not far away. "If you really want to bring him along, it's fine. But let's make things clear first. Liulong's legs are not good. He's not going to be Liulong's boss. He's going to take care of Lulang." Gu Zhanghai politely said, Of course. Of course. It was fine as long as he could get on the carriage. If he really went to Deshun and did not take care of Lulang, could Lulang chase Deshun away? Scholars valued their reputation the most. If Xiao Lulang really dared to do this, they would go to the yamen and make a fuss. They would ruin Xiao Liulong's reputation. The matriarch said, "Words are no proof. I'll write it down. Xiaoshun, bring me a pen." Gu Xiaoshun went to the west room to get a pen. The matriarch said slowly, "Write it down clearly. Gu Dashun will wake up at 3 o'clock every day to buy breakfast for Lulang, iron his clothes, wake Lulang up, help Lulang take off his clothes, wash his face, and rinse his mouth. He has to personally deliver everything to Lulang. He has to wash Liulong's clothes and empty Liulong's chamber pot." Zhou Shi's expression changed drastically. "Why is there a chamber pot?" The matriarch ignored her and continued. "When the weather is hot, he has to fan Lulang. When there are too many mosquitoes, he has to kill mosquitoes for Lulang. He can only sleep when Lulang is asleep. If Lulang wakes up in the middle of the night, he has to wake up. In short, he has to unconditionally satisfy any request of our Lulang. Also, he is not allowed to talk back. He is not allowed to be disobedient. Otherwise, Lulang can beat him. You. Zhou was so angry that her heart hurt. She almost leaned on Gu Zhonghai. However, Gu Zhonghai's expression was not much better than hers. Mrs. Zhou burst into tears and snot. My fellow villagers, please be the judge. How is this taking care of him? He is clearly ordering our Deshun servants around. The matriarch looked innocent. Huh? This is a servant? You have been treating the orphan of the third branch like this for so many years. I thought that your Gu family likes to take care of people like this. No matter how thick-skinned Zhou was, she couldn't stand it anymore. She left Gu Jiao's house with her husband and son in disgrace. Gu Jiao lifted the curtain of the window and handed a money bag to Xiao Lulang. I put some broken silver and banknotes in it. There were 10 taels of silver and 100 taels of banknotes. In fact, the card of the bank was also in it, but it was sewn secretly. Xiao Lulang nodded, took the money bag and said to her, "Let's go." Okay. Gu Jiao nodded and watched him leave the village. When the carriage disappeared at the entrance of the village, she turned and went into the house. Gu Jiao looked at the empty west house. Oh, he really left. As soon as she finished speaking, she sensed a shadow suddenly appear on the ground. She turned her head in a daze and saw Xiao Lulang appear at the door for some reason. Why are you back? She asked with her eyes wide open. Xiao Lulang stared deeply at her. I left something behind. Gu Jiao watched him walk towards her, and a series of little red hearts suddenly flashed through her mind. Was it me? Was it me? Was it me? Did he leave me behind? Gu Jiao looked at him with blinking eyes. Then he walked past Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao. Xiao Lulang came out of the West House with a certificate for the provincial examination in his hand. Without this, you can't enter the examination room. Gu Jiao opened the door expressionlessly. Take care. I won't see you out. Xiao Lulang looked at her, and a light flashed in his eyes. After he left the house, he suddenly stopped. If I said that no matter what the final result is, I won't go to the capital for the examination, would you still think that I need to go to the provincial examination? Yes. Gu Jiao said firmly as she looked at his back. I hope that you won't go to the capital in the future because you choose not to go, not because you don't have the qualifications to go. Xiao Lulang clenched his fists and a complicated look flashed through his eyes. Then Gu Jiao smiled. If there's trouble or danger, I'll protect you. He didn't mean that, but... Xiao Liulang's chest inexplicably filled with a strange emotion. This time, he really left on the road. Gu Jiao returned to the West House and found that there was an extra envelope on the table. Gu Jiao opened it, and a matching card of the bank fell out. You found it so quickly. Dropping the examination card was a lie, but returning the matching card of the bank was real, right? There was also a small note in the envelope. Gu Jiao could recognize quite a few words by now. She opened it and saw the words written in clear handwriting. Don't live in the Lin family, don't be jealous. The word jealous was written in a particularly bold and forceful manner. Gu Jiao frowned strangely. Why did she feel a little smug from the plain handwriting? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115345323. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 108. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao went to the medical center. Today was the day of the follow-up visit with the mysterious person. The other party had been waiting at the Huichun Hall for a long time. This time he didn't let people clear the medical center. Gu Jiao came a little late to see Xiao Lulang off, so she made the other party wait for a long time. The young guard's face was completely dark. Humph, you're the first person who dares to make my master wait. Gu Jiao spread her hands. Oh, I'm honored. The young guard turned his face away. Gu Jiao entered the side room. The man wore a bamboo hat with a veil that covered his face, but his noble temperament couldn't be concealed. He was still guarded by two effeminate servants. After seeing Gu Jiao a few times, the servants were already used to her rudeness. When they saw Gu Jiao sitting down without even greeting their master, they could only criticize her in their hearts, but they didn't dare to say anything sarcastic. There was no other reason. Their master's illness was really cured by this little girl. Gu Jiao gave him a total of 3 injections of benzathine penicillin, one every 7 days. The last one was done last month. Today he came for a follow-up visit. Gu Jiao took his pulse and examined him. I'm cured, right? The man's voice couldn't hide his joy. Gu Jiao took off her gloves and said to him, You seem to be recovering well, but you need 2 years before you can be considered completely cured. It's not suitable for a follow-up visit. The man was silent. Gu Jiao noticed that his mood was different from a few days ago. What's wrong? You can't follow up? The man smiled and said, To be honest, I have to leave. Oh. Gu Jiao was not surprised. Given his accent, Gu Jiao knew that he was not a local. He might not even be a native of Yuzhou province. He came from a place further away. As for the specific location, Gu Jiao could not guess. The man said amiably, However, I believe that I have been cured by Mississippi. May I take the liberty to ask, Miss? Your medical skills are so brilliant. Where did you learn them from? Gu Jiao said, I have many teachers. This was the truth. In her previous life, she had studied medicine at a university and a research institute. After that, she had entered the research institute. There were indeed many teachers who had taught her. The man was not someone who did not have good eyesight. Since Gu Jiao was not willing to talk about this topic, he did not pursue the matter any further. He said, Many thanks to Miss for curing my illness. I came here today for another matter. I hope that I can solemnly thank Mississippi. You've already paid the consultation fee, so there's no need to thank me. Gu Jiao was halfway through her sentence when she saw the man take a brocade box from a servant and place it on the table. That brocade box was clearly not an ordinary item. Gu Jiao seamlessly changed the topic. If you really want to give me a gift of thanks, then I can only reluctantly accept it. The servants simply couldn't bear to watch. If you have the ability, then have some backbone. Continue to say that you don't want it. The man gave a tolerant smile and pushed the brocade box to Gu Jiao's hand. Gu Jiao opened it and saw that it was an exquisite jade folding fan. Gu Jiao held the fan in her hand. It was slightly cold to the touch, and the jade was clear. It was truly a good fan. Do you like it? The man asked. Gu Jiao had a hesitant expression. The servants were dumbfounded. No way, a fan made of 1,000-year-old cold jade. She didn't even like it? If you don't like it, you can exchange it for something else. The man gently said. Oh, then do you have a fan made of gold? Gu Jiao asked. The servants couldn't help but tremble. You really don't know how to be polite. You want to exchange it for gold, but is gold worth as much as it? Country people really don't know much. The man smiled and said, I don't have a gold fan, but I have other gold things here. After saying that, he called one of the servants over and whispered a few words in his ear. The servant's eyes widened. Master, this is not appropriate, right? That is. The man didn't treat the servant as nicely as he treated Gu Jiao. Just take it. Why are you talking so much nonsense? After going to Jiangnan, I found that you have other abilities. You are more talkative. Yes. The servant didn't dare to neglect. He glared at Gu Jiao with hidden bitterness and went to the carriage to take a new small box. It was actually a Huarong Road made of pure gold. Huarong Road was a kind of ancient intellectual toy. Many shops sold it, but it was all made of wood. Gu Jiao saw a gold one for the first time. It was fun and sparkling. Little Jing Kong would definitely like it. Gu Jiao nodded with satisfaction. The man looked at her serious little face, and finally had a little expression. He couldn't help but laugh. Miss, do you like gold or Huarong Road? Gu Jiao said. It's not me who likes it. It's my younger brother who likes it. The man smiled. Miss, you have a younger brother? Gu Jiao pointed with her fingers. Not one but 3. Man. Then it doesn't seem good to only give one. The man gave Gu Jiao 2 more gifts. The servants at the side all felt their master's pain. Why didn't you say it was good? Didn't you kill the conversation? Had he dug his own grave? There was no one to talk about it. It was you who cared about your face. When Gu Jiao left the medical center, there were 3 more luxurious gift bags in the small basket. The man cupped his hands at Gu Jiao at the gate of Huichun Hall. Miss, we will meet again. Gu Jiao glanced at him. We will meet again. What's wrong with you? After that, she carried the small basket and disappeared into the crowd without looking back. The servant was furious. He gritted his teeth and said, Master, look at her. The man was also a little startled. After all, no one dared to talk to him like that for many years. But he was in a good mood after he understood and laughed. Yes, what's wrong with me? Why do I want to see a doctor? Isn't it good to be healthy? Master, it's time to go back to the capital. Let's go. After Gu Jiao left Huichun Hall, she set off for the only iron shop in town. This iron shop had been open for more than 20 years, and could be considered an old shop. Gu Jiao had just walked to the door when she heard the sound of iron being hammered. The iron shop's business was very good. The blacksmiths were so busy that their feet didn't touch the ground. There was no counter in the shop. Gu Jiao called a waiter and asked, I ordered iron here last month. Today is the day of delivery. The waiter carried a heavy basket of iron ore and shouted into the hall. Old Wang, someone is here to pick up the goods. Coming. A blacksmith drenched in sweat hurriedly ran out. He had a handkerchief around his neck. He wiped the sweat off his face with the handkerchief and looked at Gu Jiao. Who wants to pick up the goods? You? Last time, it was Huichun Hall's coachman who ordered the goods, so the old blacksmith didn't recognize her. Gu Jiao made a sound of acknowledgement and handed the cards to him. There weren't many scholars in ancient times and not many blacksmiths were literate. Therefore, they used matching cards. Each pair of cards had a corresponding number on it. Based on the number, one would know which batch of goods it was. You haven't finished this, the old blacksmith said with a frown. Gu Jiao said, but last time you said you would pick up the goods today. The old blacksmith used the handkerchief to wipe his sweat and said, but it really isn't finished. We can't do anything about it. How much longer will it take? Gu Jiao asked. The old blacksmith thought for a moment. 1 or 2 months. Gu Jiao was puzzled. That long? I didn't ask for too many farm tools, right? The old blacksmith sighed and said, it's not yours. Last month, my shop received a job before yours. It's about 1,000 pieces of ironware for mining iron ore. How can a small blacksmith shop like ours make it in time? We're still short of half. We don't have enough manpower, and we don't have enough furnaces. Old Wang, it's time to forge. One of the blacksmiths shouted from inside. Hey, coming. The old blacksmith shouted into the shop and then turned to Gu Jiao and said, Miss, you should come back next month to take a look. Gu Jiao didn't want to wait that long. After the old blacksmith went in, she also went into the shop. The shop assistants and blacksmiths were so busy that no one paid attention to a little girl. In all fairness, the blacksmith shop had a lot of manpower. According to this number of people, it was more than enough to make 1,000 pieces of iron a month. Then the problem shouldn't be the shortage of manpower. Gu Jiao looked at their blast furnace and suddenly found the problem. Smelting iron required an extremely high temperature. In order to reach this temperature, blast furnaces generally used blowers. Gu Jiao thought that the iron shops of this dynasty also used water pipes to blow the furnace. Who would have thought that it was the most primitive method of blowing the furnace by human power? The biggest disadvantage of human power blowers, commonly known as human power blowers, was that each port only had one tuo, bag made of horse skin. Every time the human power blowers, the tool would close once, and a blast furnace had about 4 to 6 ports. In other words, a blast furnace could blow up to 6 times at the same time. This efficiency was much lower than that of water pipes. Water pipes were driven by water power. Every time the water wheel rotated, the tool could close several times. Not only did it save a lot of time, but it also saved manpower. Gu Jiao told the old blacksmith her idea. The old blacksmith was very surprised. How could a little girl dressed in cloth know this? After being surprised, he said, "I've seen what you said. It's only available in the Imperial Court's blacksmith shop. There were no craftsmen who could make water pipes. I can do it," Gu Jiao said. The old blacksmith was shocked. Gu Jiao thought for a moment. "But what I'm going to do next is not water pipes." Gu Jiao said a name. "What box?" The old blacksmith said that he had never heard of it. "Do you have paper?" Gu Jiao asked. "Ah." The old blacksmith was shocked silly by Gu Jiao and didn't react for a long time. Gu Jiao simply found a piece of bluestone on the ground, took out a charcoal pencil from her purse, and concentrated on drawing. The other blacksmiths were attracted by her. The old blacksmith scolded. "What are you looking at? Go to work." The blacksmiths were afraid of the old master's prestige, so they suppressed their curiosity and went to work. However, they still looked at Gu Jiao from time to time. What was this little girl drawing on the ground of their iron shop? The old blacksmith finally couldn't hold back and asked, "Miss, what are you doing?" "Drawing," Gu Jiao said concisely. "Why are you drawing on my ground? I'll have to find someone to wipe it later. It's too troublesome." Gu Jiao smiled. "I'll let you finish the remaining 1,000 pieces of iron in 10 days. Don't you want it?" 10 days. The old blacksmith stood up with his hands on his hips. "Stop joking." He was a blacksmith, so how could he not know? Even if everyone in the iron shop didn't sleep or rest, it would still take at least a month. Unless they used the Imperial Court's water pipes, but that would still take 20 days. "I'm not joking." The old blacksmith expressed his disbelief. "If I do it, then what?" The old blacksmith crossed his arms and looked down at her. "If you do it, then I'll make your iron for free and won't charge you a single copper coin. Not only that, I'll also take care of all your iron in the future. I won't take a single coin from you." Gu Jiao seriously thought about it and felt that this deal was feasible. "All right, I agree." The old blacksmith pouted. "What do you mean you agree? You're bragging to the heavens." Gu Jiao quickly finished drawing and nodded her head in satisfaction. "It should be like this. Go and find a carpenter later." The old blacksmith's mouth opened wide. "What?" Gu Jiao rolled up her sleeves. "Don't be in a daze. If you keep on being in a daze, you won't be able to finish your iron." After saying this, Gu Jiao stood up and put the charcoal pencil back into her purse. Then she washed her hands and turned around to leave. The old blacksmith's face was filled with confusion. This can't be right? Was this little girl toying with him? How could she understand these things? But for some reason, the old blacksmith thought of the other person kneeling on the ground and calmly drawing. He still went to call the carpenter next door. The carpenter was knowledgeable. After looking at the blueprint on the bluestone board, his eyes immediately changed. Who drew this? What's wrong?" the old blacksmith asked strangely. The carpenter didn't answer his question. He knelt down and touched the blueprint on the ground with both hands, as if he was looking at a treasure. However, he was afraid that he would touch it, so he didn't dare to touch it. This cautious look made the old blacksmith puzzled. The carpenter's eyes lit up. Without saying anything, he went back to the shop and grabbed a pen and paper. He knelt on the ground and began to copy the blueprint devoutly. He had a vague premonition that this might be the most amazing thing he had ever done in his life. The old blacksmith was confused. He stared at the blueprint on the bluestone board. What's going on? Can it really be made? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_896422826/11534147 HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website. Chapter 109. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet. When Gu Jiao returned home, Gu Yan was already awake. He was sitting in the living room with the old lady and eating sweet and sour eggs. Seeing Gu Jiao enter the room, the old lady quickly pushed the sweet and sour eggs in front of Gu Yan. She said righteously, "I said I won't eat it. You have to be filial to me." Gu Yan was speechless. Who was the one who took away half of his sweet and sour eggs? The sweet and sour eggs were made by Xuanningsiang. Of course, the old lady didn't show up. She just encouraged Gu Yan to ask for it. Xuanningsiang couldn't resist Gu Yan's charm. She cooked a big bowl for him without hesitation. Little Jingkong and Gu Shaoshan also had a small bowl each. Gu Shaoshan ate quickly. He had already returned to his room to study his wood carving. Little Jingkong was still practicing on the tree trunk. He hadn't started eating yet. Gu Jiao decisively confiscated the old lady's sweet and sour eggs. In fact, the old lady who had already eaten half a bowl wiped her mouth and returned to her room. "As long as I eat fast enough, Jiao Jiao won't be able to catch me." Gu Jiao gave the 3 gifts from the man to her 3 younger brothers. She didn't need to ask, and the 3 of them accurately found what they liked. Little Jingkong picked up the shiny golden Huarong Dao and couldn't put it down. Gu Yan picked a jade thumb ring made of 1,000-year-old cold jade. It was better than the original one. Gu Shaoshan got a dagger that could cut iron like mud. This dagger was smaller than a normal dagger. It was easy to carry and could be used as an excellent carving knife. The 3 of them were very happy. Xuanningsiang was helping Gu Jiao clean up the backyard. Xuanningsiang often came over to help. In return, Gu Jiao would help Xuanningsiang to work in the fields. Occasionally, the old lady would help Xuanningsiang to look after the children. The main reason was that Gouhua was a man of few words. If you gave him a candied fruit, he would lick it for the whole morning. The old lady's ears were very quiet, so she naturally felt that Gouhua was easy to take care of. Little Jingkong. "Great aunt, you're eating the candied plums again." Jiao Jiao. "Great aunt is eating candied plums again. She already ate 5 today." Little Jingkong, who caught the old lady right after he finished practicing, thought, "Great aunt is too naughty. I told you not to eat, but you always secretly eat." The old lady's hands trembled. "Stinky little monk. Xuanningsiang came here today to look for Gu Jiao." "Jiao Nyang, Gouhua's second uncle sent us a letter again. Help me read it." Xuanningsiang handed a folded envelope to Gu Jiao. Ever since Gu Jiao learned how to read from Xiao Lulang, Xuanningsiang didn't ask Xiao Lulang to read the letter. Gu Jiao opened the letter and glanced at it. What's wrong?" Xuanningsiang asked. Gu Jiao said, "Oh, this letter is different from the previous one. It seems to be written by Gouhua's second uncle himself." Xuanningsiang's eyes lit up. "Really? His second uncle also knows how to write?" Gu Jiao looked at her proud face, and didn't have the heart to tell her how she could tell that it was written by himself. It was because his handwriting was too ugly. It was even uglier than her calligraphy. Moreover, the words he used were very immature. It was at the level of a primary school student. However, it was still able to express the meaning clearly. The letter said that Gouhua's second uncle was promoted and became the deputy general's personal guard. Although he was only a small soldier, it was still a great honor to be able to follow the deputy general. However, because of this, his original plan to visit his family this year would have to be cancelled. He would have to follow the deputy general back to the capital to report on his work. The deputy general only brought 100 personal guards. He is one of them. It's a rare opportunity, Gu Jiao said. However, these words didn't comfort Xuanningsiang. Xuanningsiang's expression darkened. After Gouhua's father passed away, the person my mother missed the most was Gouhua's second uncle. My mother hoped day and night that he would come back to see her. When she heard that he might pass by our village this year, my mother was so happy that her old leg almost recovered. Now that he isn't coming back, how do you want me to explain this to my mother? Xuanningsiang was only 2 years older than Gu Jiao. In her previous life, she would still be a young high school student. Now she was already a sister-in-law, mother and daughter-in-law. Gu Jiao didn't know how to comfort her. She continued to read. Gowa's second uncle also sent you some money. He said that your birthday is coming soon, and wants you to use the money to buy 2 sets of jewelry. It's a total of 20 taels. Xuanningsiang worriedly said. Why did he send so much money? Did he not eat properly? He gave all the money to the family. Gu Jiao knew how to comfort her. Don't worry. He won't starve in the military camp. It's just that he doesn't have anywhere to spend the money, so he sent it all back. Xuanningsiang slightly relaxed. Gu Jiao continued to read. Gowa's second uncle said that he doesn't want you to farm anymore. The money he gave you is enough for you, your mother and Gowa to spend. You can rent the land to the villagers for a cheap price. Xuanningsiang hurriedly said. How can that be? We have to save up the money and use it for him to get married in the future. Gu Jiao thought. A man wants to buy jewelry for you. Do you really not have any other thoughts? After lunch, Xuanningsiang went to the bank to get the money. Gowa hugged her thigh and refused to let go. Xuanningsiang had no choice but to take Gowa with her. There weren't many people in the bank. Xuanningsiang waited for a little while before she received the 20 taels of silver. She put the money into the cloth bag, carried Gowa on her back, and hugged the cloth bag in her arms. When she came out of the bank, she was bumped into by a young man who was dressed like a scholar. Do you have eyes? How can you walk? The scholar impatiently patted the arm that Xuanningsiang bumped into. Xuanningsiang embarrassedly apologized. I'm sorry. The scholar's companion said. Forget it. Don't mind her. We still have to rush to the exam. We can't afford to be late. When she heard that she had to pay, Xuanningsiang's face turned pale. Fortunately, the scholar was persuaded to leave by his companion. Xuanningsiang breathed a sigh of relief. But soon, she found that there was something wrong with her cloth bag. It seemed to be a lot lighter. She hurriedly took out her bag, and was instantly dumbfounded. Her 20 taels of silver were all gone. Xuanningsiang thought of the scholar just now. The expression in her eyes changed and she chased after them. Wait! The 2 young men stopped in their tracks. The scholar who bumped into her turned around and looked at her impatiently. What are you doing? Xuanningsiang gathered her courage and said, You stole my money. What? The scholar was puzzled. There was also a trace of shame and anger from being wrongly accused. Xuanningsiang was originally a bully at home. She was amenable to the soft but afraid of the hard. If she really confronted 2 grown men, she was more or less afraid. But that was 20 taels of silver. It was such a large sum of money. Gowa's second uncle risked his life to earn it. She couldn't let others steal it. It's you. She forced herself to gather her courage. I just came out of the bank. The whole way, I covered myself up tightly. Just now, I was bumped into by you, and the money was gone. The scholar rolled up his sleeves, and was about to get angry. His companion pulled him back. What are you doing? Why are you arguing with an ignorant woman? The scholar snorted. It's not that I want to argue with her. She's the one who blackmailed me. His companion sighed. Forget it. The exam is more important. Don't pay attention to her. For your sake, I won't report it. The scholar snorted coldly and turned around to leave with his companion. Xuanningsiang rushed forward and grabbed the scholar's arm. Give me back my money. You're crazy. The scholar angrily stomped his feet and pushed her hand away. Xuanningsiang rushed over again. As the 2 of them pulled and pulled, the surrounding commoners surrounded them. The scholar indignantly said, You said that I stole your money. Can you show me the evidence? If you blackmail me again, I'll report it. Since you're a woman and you're carrying a child on your back, I thought you were honest. Don't you feel ashamed bringing a child to do such a despicable thing? You. Xuanningsiang's face turned green from his words. The surrounding people began to point at them. In today's world, Men were superior to women. Moreover, everything was inferior except for studying. No one would believe that Xuanningsiang was a widow compared to a scholar. The scholar bitterly said, I'm kind and won't report it. First, because you're a woman. Second, because we're rushing to the provincial exam. We don't have time to argue with you. This is too much. How can she blackmail a student who's rushing to the exam? Does she have any conscience? Isn't that right? She studied hard for 10 years just to be blackmailed by her? Look at her. She's not a good person. The passers-by began to criticize Xuanningsiang. Xuanningsiang felt so wrong that tears came out of her eyes. She didn't blackmail them. She really lost the money. Gowa was originally asleep, but he was also woken up by the noise. Seeing that he and his mother were surrounded by a group of people, he cried out in fear. Deanly had just come out of the dessert shop and was about to go to the town's medical center when he heard a heart-wrenching cry. This voice was a bit familiar. Deanly paused and then walked over. At this moment, Xuanningsiang was being criticized by everyone behind her back. No one believed what she said. Deanly quickly recognized her. She was his beloved student's neighbor. Then he recognized Gowa, the little fatty who called him father. Deanly walked into the crowd. He was the dean of Tianxiang Academy. Even if he wasn't wearing the clothes of a teacher, his scholarly and noble aura could still suppress the crowd in an instant. What happened? He asked. Xuanningsiang was already sobbing. The scholar said, This little woman blackmailed me. Deanly asked, What did she blackmail you about? The scholar angrily replied, She said I stole his silver. Deanly asked again, Did you steal it? The scholar exploded. What are you talking about? Of course I didn't steal it. I already said that she blackmailed me. Didn't you hear me? An auntie who was watching the commotion said, That's right. The two of them are students who are going to the provincial capital to take the exam. They are really unlucky to be blackmailed by this woman. Deanly looked at the two of them. Which private school are you from? The scholar straightened his back and said, We are from Tianxiang Academy. Deanly's eyes slightly narrowed. Is that so? What are your names? Which class are you from? What does it have to do with you? The scholar impatiently asked. Deanly faintly smiled. I am the dean of Tianxiang Academy. I don't remember the academy accepting you two as students. The scholar and his companions' faces changed. The surrounding people were shocked. Deanly calmly said to a young man beside him, I'll have to trouble little brother to report this to the authorities. Just say that someone here is pretending to be a student of Tianxiang Academy to cheat and bully women and children. The two of them were making a lot of noise, but they didn't report it to the authorities. Now that he had reported it to the authorities, who was real and who was fake, it would be clear. The young man's mind was filled with one sentence. Deanly is talking to me. Deanly is talking to me. I'll have to trouble little brother. Deanly gently said. The young man nodded solemnly and dashed toward the county office like a wisp of smoke. This was like a flood rushing against the Dragon King's temple. The scholar and his companions saw that the situation was not good, so they broke into a run. Deanly calmly said, I'll have to trouble the two of you to stop them. His words didn't have the slightest hint of a command, but they were inexplicably convincing. The two men who were watching the commotion caught the two of them. My money! Xuanningsiang cried. Deanly slightly nodded and walked forward. He searched the two of them and found Xuanningsiang's money. Seeing the money that she had lost and then regained, Xuanningsiang cried and was excited. In the end she burped. Many. Burp. Many thanks. Burp. Father. Gowa saw Deanly. Xuanningsiang was so shocked that she didn't even burp. This child was randomly recognizing a father again. Deanly was a mature and experienced man. Of course, he wouldn't get angry over such a small matter. He had already asked the experienced teachers in the academy. When children first learned how to speak, they would call a woman mother and a man father. It wasn't a rare thing. Father. Gowa wanted him to hug her. Xuanningsiang was so embarrassed that she wished she could find a hole to hide in. You're injured. Deanly saw the inch-long wound on her wrist. Blood was gushing out of it. She was so focused on getting the money back that she didn't notice that her wrist was cut by the other party's pendant. Deanly politely said, "Give the child to me. The medical center is nearby. I'll take you to bandage it." Xue Ningxiang hurriedly covered her wrist with her sleeve. No need. It's just a small injury." Deanly sternly said, "You still need to see it. The weather is hot and it's easy to get infected." Xue Ningxiang thought for a moment. "I'll go by myself. I'm also going to the medical center. It's just on the way," Deanly said as he carried Go-Wa, who kept reaching out to him. After Go-Wa had a father, she didn't want her mother anymore. She wrapped her chubby little hands around Deanly's neck and buried her head in his arms. Xue Ningxiang was so embarrassed. The two of them went to the medical center one after the other. Deanly sent his old mother to the medical center. The reason was that when the servant was cleaning the courtyard, he found that his old mother was eating mulberries and suddenly fainted on the rattan chair. Old Madame Li was old, and it was very dangerous for her to be in such a situation. Deanly couldn't wait to invite the doctor home, and directly sent her over. In the end, the doctor said, "She's fine. Old Madame Li just fell asleep." Deanly was speechless. He was worried that old Madame Li would be hungry when she woke up, so he hurriedly went to a nearby snack shop to buy some osmanthus cakes that old people like to eat. After entering the medical center, Deanly found a doctor to treat Xue Ningxiang's injuries. Go-Wa was pressed down on the chair by Xue Ningxiang. Deanly gave Go-Wa a piece of osmanthus cake. Go-Wa ate it heartily. As he ate, he looked up and realized that his father was gone. He climbed down from the chair and sneaked to find his father. In the end, he followed him into a side room. Old Madame Li slowly woke up. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw a little bean. The little bean was chubby, round and cute. Old Madame Li waved at the little bean. Go-Wa was timid and retreated in fear. Coincidentally, Deanly walked out from behind the green screen cabinet. Little Go-Wa rolled over and hugged his leg. "Dad. Dad, Dad?" Old Madame Li looked at her son, and then at the little bean. Her cloudy old eyes lit up. The Bodhisattva had appeared. She had a little grandchild. Because Gu Jiao was unwilling to return home, Marquis Gu and Gu Jinyu's return to the capital was delayed. Marquis Gu's original plan was to bring Yao Shi and the twins back to the capital by the end of June at the latest. However, Yao Shi and Gu Yan were both staying here because of Gu Jiao. This made Marquis Gu very vexed. Gu Jinyu was even more vexed. Consort Shu had promised to hold a grand hairpin ceremony for her, and confer her the title of county princess during the hairpin ceremony. Being a county princess was a rare honor. As long as she became a county princess, even if the news that she was not the Gu family's flesh and blood spread, it would not be too degrading. But if she could not even return, how could she talk about a hairpin ceremony? Gu Jinyu was so anxious that a blister appeared on her mouth. Marquis Gu came to visit her. Seeing her so angry, he could not help but feel distressed. "How are you serving, young miss? The weather is so hot. Don't you know to cook fewer spicy dishes?" A young servant girl said. "Marquis, we're innocent. Young Miss's diet has been very light recently. Young Miss is angry because she is depressed." Gu Jinyu sighed. "Don't speak nonsense. You can all leave." "Yes." The servant girls left. Gu Jinyu said to Marquis Gu, "Father, daughter is really fine." Marquis Gu frowned and said, "Nonsense. You just have something on your mind. You haven't smiled recently." Gu Jinyu lowered her eyes. "Daughter just misses grandmother. Grandmother is old and fell last year. Although she has recovered, her body is not the same as before. Daughter doesn't know how much more filial piety I can perform for grandmother." These words struck a chord in Marquis Gu's heart. Marquis Gu was usually filial. Furthermore, the old madam only had him and Consort Shu as her children. After Consort Shu entered the palace, the old madam rarely saw her. As a son, he could not attend to his mother. Just thinking about it made him feel unfilial. Marquis Gu frowned and decided to give Yao Shi more trouble. Who knew that Yao Shi's heart was as firm as a rock? "If I don't go back, Yen'er won't go back either." Marquis Gu scared. "Mother hasn't seen Yen'er in many years," Yao Shi said. "But she doesn't like Yen'er either." Marquis Gu retorted. When did mother not like Yen? Yenner is her grandson. She dotes on him too much. But she did not dote on her 3 precious grandsons as much as she did on her previous 3. The previous Marchioness and the old madam were of the same clan. According to seniority, she called the old madam aunt. The marriage between the 2 families made them even closer. The old madam naturally doted on her children. In addition, her 3 sons had lost their mother early. The old madam's heart ached. Thirdly, the old madam looked down on Yaosher's birth. When Yaosher gave birth to the sick Gu Yen, the old madam felt that it was Yaosher's own illness that implicated the Gu family's descendants. At first, the old madam treated Gu Jinyu indifferently. However, Gu Jinyu was too outstanding and gave face to the Marquis Fu. Imperial concubine Shu also thought highly of her. Only then did the old madam gradually change her opinion of Gu Jinyu. Marquis Gu's rebuttal did not have much confidence. He cleared his throat and said, "But Jinyu is about to become of age. How can mother not be at her side when she holds the ceremony?" Yaosher said, "Then holding it in the villa is the same." Marquis Gu said, "I can't always stay in the villa. If mother is here, father must also be here." Yaosher thought for a moment. "How about you return to the capital first, and come back on the day of your birthday?" Marquis Gu. Why was it so hard to kidnap his wife and children back to the capital? Marquis Gu used all kinds of tactics, but Yaosher refused to relent. Marquis Gu. What exactly will it take for you to return to the capital? Yaosher said seriously. If I return on Jiaojiao, I will return. Marquis Gu. How could that girl possibly return? Gu Jinyu came to deliver ginseng soup to Yaosher, and inadvertently heard the two's conversation outside the door. The young maidservant was also present. The young maidservant served Gu Jinyu and already knew about her and Gu Jiao's past. The young maidservant complained on behalf of her mistress. Why did eldest young miss only return to the capital after madam? Could it be that second young miss is not madam's child? It was second young miss who has been filial to madam all these years. Madam is too biased. Gu Jinyu held the ginseng soup on the tray and did not speak. The young maidservant said, aggrieved. On such a hot day, second young miss personally went to the kitchen to make ginseng soup for madam. She even burned her hands. What did that eldest young miss do? She caused madam to be so biased. Don't say any more. She is my older sister. She has suffered a lot. It is only right that mother dotes on her. Gu Jinyu finished speaking and left with a gloomy expression. For a few days, no one in the manor mentioned returning to the capital. The villa seemed to have returned to its peaceful days. It was not until the end of the month that a carriage arrived at the villa that the many days of peace were broken. Marquis Gu put on his official robes and tidied up his appearance. He personally went to the entrance of the villa to welcome the arrival of the other party. Dozens of guards lined up in a row, and a young man dressed in white slowly walked down from a carriage pulled by 4 horses in the lead. The young man's clothes were as white as snow and he looked extremely noble. Marquis Gu flicked the wide sleeves of his official robes and stepped forward. He cupped his hands and bowed. This official greets Royal Princein. The young man who was called Royal Princein slightly raised his hand and said coldly and politely, Marquis Ding, and does not need to be so courteous. My younger sister and I have traveled the world. This time, we are rushing back to the capital to take the examinations. We were passing by and suddenly came to disturb you. I hope Marquis Ding and will not take offense. Marquis Gu smiled. Royal Princein is too serious. It is this official's honor for Royal Prince and your younger sister to visit my humble home. The weather is hot. How about Royal Princein and young Miss Shuang move to the villa and speak inside? Royal Princein nodded and slightly turned his head. He said to the carriage behind him, Why haven't you alighted yet? The curtain of the carriage was lifted and a mischievous little girl stuck her head out. Her eyes darted around as if she was curious. She then jumped down with the help of the servants. She came to Royal Prince Anne's side. Older brother, is this the villa with the hot spring? Greetings Marquis Dingen. Royal Prince Anne said to his younger sister. The little girl curled her lips and bowed to Marquis Gu. Marquis Gu's title was below Royal Prince Anne's. Although the little girl was his younger sister, she did not have a rank. According to the rules, she should have bowed to Marquis Gu. However, putting etiquette aside, the little girl's status was too high. Although she bowed due to her older brother's authority, her attitude was not very respectful. Marquis Gu smiled and acted as if he did not see anything. He amiably led the brother and sister into the villa. Inside the villa, Yao Shi and Gu Jinyu also received the news. They were female and could not go out to welcome them. Thus, they waited in the Listening Wave Pavilion's reception pavilion for Royal Prince, and Yao Shi had left the capital for many years, and did not care about the situation in the capital. She had never heard of this royal prince, and Gu Jinyu patiently told her about this royal prince and's legendary life. He is Imperial Tutor Zhuang's grandson. He is only 18 years old this year. He was conferred the title of prince at 18? Yao Shi was very surprised. Even imperial princes and Qinhuang were rarely conferred the title so early. Gu Jinyu shook his head. He was not conferred the title of royal prince at 18. He was conferred the title when he was 8. However, this conferment was not his good fortune. Rather, it was his misfortune. 10 years ago, the country of Zhao and the country of Qin fought, and the country of Zhao lost. The country of Qin proposed to use the crown prince of Zhao as a hostage. The emperor could not bear to part with his son, and the court officials were all against it. At this time, Imperial Tutor Zhuang stepped forward, and was willing to let his most outstanding grandson replace the crown prince as a hostage in the country of Qin. If it was any other official's son or grandson, the country of Qin probably would not have agreed. However, the Zhuang family was the Empress Dowager's maternal family. Imperial Tutor Zhuang was the Empress Dowager's elder brother. His grandson was Empress Dowager Zhuang's grandnephew. Everyone knew that Empress Dowager Zhuang had been in charge of politics for many years. Her power was greater than the emperor's. Using her grandnephew as a hostage was not much less than the crown prince. Thus, the emperor conferred the title of Imperial Tutor Zhuang's grandson as royal prince and used his status as a prince to enter the country of Qin as a hostage. It was not until 3 years ago that the two countries fought again. This time, the country of Qin lost and royal prince and finally returned to the country of Zhao. There were many stories of royal prince in the capital. Gu Jinyu had only heard of them and had never seen him in person. She was curious, but her expression was respectful and courteous. She did not overstep her boundaries. When Marquis Gu's group finally arrived at the reception pavilion, Yao Shi and Gu Jinyu finally bowed to royal prince, and Yao Shi had her eyes lowered the entire time. Gu Jinyu was still young. No matter how well-behaved she appeared, she could not help but glance at the other person curiously. Then she froze. How could there be such a handsome man in the world? He was noble but not arrogant. He was elegant and refined. His every movement was noble, and there was a hint of otherworldly immortality. "This is my wife, Yao Shi. This is my daughter," Marquis Gu introduced. Royal Prince nodded slightly. "Madame Gu, Miss Gu." Miss Zhuang walked forward. "You are Gu Jinyu? I know you." Gu Jinyu was slightly stunned. Yao Shi and Marquis Gu also looked at Miss Zhuang in astonishment. Miss Zhuang raised her eyebrows and said, "My fourth uncle praised your handwriting. He said that among people of the same age as me, your handwriting is the best." Miss Zhuang's fourth uncle was the provincial governor of Pingqing Prefecture, Zhuang Xianji. Miss Zhuang smiled coldly. "Ha, bring me a pen. I want to compete with you." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/115311140. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 110. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that could not be found online are available here. This was very awkward. Gu Jinyu's handwriting was famous in the capital for being outstanding. Although this Miss Zhuang was Provincial Governor Zhuang's niece, she would probably lose badly against Gu Jinyu. Miss Zhuang did not look like a magnanimous person. If she lost badly, she might make things difficult for Gu Jinyu. Marquis Gu looked at Princeton for help, hoping that he could stop his sister. But Princeton had no intention of speaking at all. Marquis Gu secretly broke out in cold sweat. He gave Gu Jinyu a look without batting an eyelid, hoping that Gu Jinyu would deliberately lose to Miss Zhuang. When Yao Shi saw Miss Zhuang making things difficult for Gu Jinyu, she inexplicably thought of Gu Jiao. Gu Jinyu was a daughter who grew up in the Marquis's household, but she could still make things difficult for her. If Gu Jiao, who grew up in the countryside, returned to the capital, would she not encounter this kind of situation? The group entered the reception hall. The servants brought over brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone. How does Miss Zhuang want to compete? Gu Jinyu asked in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Miss Zhuang raised her eyebrows and said, "Each of them will write a poem. My brother and Marquis Gu will be the judges to see whose handwriting is better." "The same poem?" Gu Jinyu asked. Miss Zhuang snorted. "Of course. Otherwise, how can we compete?" This was what a layman would say. Gu Jinyu saw through it but did not expose it. "Miss Zhuang, please give us a poem." Zhuang Mingyan thought for a while, then waved her hand and wrote a poem written by Princeton. This was written by Princeton in his second year in the Qin Kingdom. He was not even 10 years old that year, but he had already written a 7-character quatrain filled with homesickness. His talent shocked the Qin Kingdom. The king of the Qin Kingdom pitied his talent, and did not kill the hostage to vent his anger after the Qin Kingdom was defeated. Gu Jinyu knew which poem it was from the beginning. This poem was widely circulated in the Zhao Kingdom. While she admired Prince An's talent, she finished writing the entire poem smoothly. She was even faster than Miss Zhuang by a few strokes. After the two put down their brushes, the servants on both sides brought their works to Royal Prince and Marquis Gu to judge. Marquis Gu had originally intended to say that Miss Zhuang was more powerful no matter what, but after he saw the two's handwriting, he didn't even have the courage to lie through his teeth. Was this really written by a human? In any case, Miss Zhuang was the granddaughter of Grand Tutor Zhuang, and her uncle was the literary master, Provincial Governor Zhuang. It could be said that the Zhuang family was full of scholars and none of them were cowards. Why did Miss Zhuang turn a corner? Marquis Gu broke out in cold sweat. "Daughter, didn't I tell you to give in to Miss Zhuang?" "Forget it, with such poor handwriting, there was no way he could give in." Miss Zhuang clapped her hands and arrogantly asked, "How about it? Who won?" Royal Princeton smiled faintly. "Is there a need to ask? Naturally you win." Marquis Gu was taken aback. How could he be so good at lying through his teeth? Gu Jinyu was also very surprised. Was Royal Princeton the kind of person who felt wronged by the truth? Miss Zhuang smiled proudly, and was about to taunt Gu Jinyu when she heard Royal Princeton speak again. "In terms of making a fool of yourself, who can compare to you?" Miss Zhuang was stunned. Marquis Gu and Gu Jinyu were also stunned. He was too disrespectful to his own sister. After Miss Zhuang recovered from her shock, she put her hands on her hips and stomped her feet. Brother, how could you say that about me?" Royal Princeton calmly said, "Even a 3-year-old's handwriting is better than yours. If you can't even see this, then it's not that your handwriting isn't good, it's that your brain isn't good." Miss Zhuang was choked until her face and neck turned red. Royal Princeton said, "If you want to continue making a fool of yourself, then let's do it again. This time, do you want to compete in poetry, or do you want to take turns to lose to others in poetry?" Miss Zhuang was so angry that she didn't want to bother with him anymore. She flung her sleeves and walked away angrily. Marquis Gu was embarrassed. "Royal Prince Anne's way of teaching your sister is really original." Royal Princeton said unhurriedly, "She's the youngest sister in the family. Her family has spoiled her. I've embarrassed myself in front of you, Marquis." Marquis Gu laughed dryly. "How can it be? How can it be? Miss Zhuang is delicate and lively. She's quite cute." Royal Princeton nodded slightly. It's getting late. I'll go rest first. See you tomorrow. Marquis Gu, Lady Yao and Gu Jinyu bowed to him and respectfully sent him out. Watching his figure disappear into the night, Gu Jinyu murmured emotionally. This Junwang is different from the other princes. Gu Jinyu often went to the palace to accompany Consort Shu and had seen many princes and princes. They were all not as outstanding as Royal Princeton, whether it was appearance, talent or temperament. This kind of man, there was no woman in the world who could match him. Royal Princeton and Miss Zhuang were arranged to stay in the most elegant courtyard in the mountain villa. After Miss Zhuang returned to her room, she locked herself in her room. The maids wanted to comfort her, but were all chased out by her. There was a knock on the door. Miss Zhuang said angrily, "Get out. No one is allowed to come in." "It's me," Royal Princeton said. "Brother?" Miss Zhuang stood up agitatedly. But when she thought of her brother's embarrassment, she sat down with grievance. "I'm coming in," Royal Princeton said. He waited for a while before pushing the door open and entering. Miss Zhuang turned her back and showed him the back of her head. Royal Princeton said softly, "You were the one who wanted to travel with me. I said that I wouldn't spoil you like father and mother. You also agreed." Miss Zhuang choked. She didn't expect her brother to keep his word. She thought that he would be like father and mother. He said that he wouldn't spoil her, but in reality, he would indulge her without any bottom line. She choked. "I'm your sister, but you're helping outsiders bully me." Royal Princeton didn't argue with her. He walked forward and handed her a palm-sized box. "What is it?" Miss Zhuang asked indifferently. "You'll know when you open it," Royal Princeton said. Miss Zhuang looked at the box in her brother's hand. Her brother's hand was really beautiful. It was as exquisite as a jade carving. Even if jade was in his hands, it wouldn't be as good as his. Miss Zhuang sighed and took the box. She opened it and found a luminous pearl inside. She loved these exquisite and fun things, and her attention was immediately attracted. Royal Princeton said, "It's a 5-colored luminous pearl. It's the treasure of the king of Qin country. I used 2 poems to exchange for it." Once she heard that it was the treasure of the king of Qin country, Miss Zhuang loved it even more. Her brother still loved her. Miss Zhuang was happy. However, when she thought about how she compromised so quickly, she felt a little embarrassed. She cleared her throat and said seriously, "You're not allowed to help outsiders bully me in the future." After comforting his sister, Royal Princeton returned to his room. A man in black walked out from behind the screen. He cupped his hands and bowed. "Royal Prince." Royal Princeton said, "Are all your people here?" The man in black said, "They're all here. They're hiding outside the villa and waiting for your orders at any time." Royal Princeton said, "Tell them that they don't need to hide in the dark. Just change into civilian clothes." The man in black thought and said, "Royal Prince, are you sure she's in Qingchuan town?" Royal Princeton thought for a moment and said, "Previously, His Majesty's people lost news of the Empress Dowager in Qingchuan town. In other words, the Empress Dowager did wander here. As for where she went, we still need to find her carefully." The man in black hesitated and asked, "Did the Empress Dowager really get leprosy?" Royal Princeton said, "Yes." The man in black frowned and said, "But His Majesty's people have already turned the town upside down. They even searched the villages under his rule. They didn't find anyone suspicious. Could it be that the Empress Dowager is already dead?" Royal Princeton's eyes were deep and dark. He said, "If she's alive, I want to see her. If she's dead, I want to see her corpse. No matter what, search her again." Everyone thought that this royal prince was ignorant of worldly affairs, and was a weak young man who only knew how to play with words. However, if he was as weak as he looked on the surface, how could he live well after being a hostage in Qin country for so many years? No one knew how much the royal prince had suffered in Qin country. The royal prince didn't even tell his biological parents. However, the man in black stayed by the royal prince's side and witnessed the royal prince's dark days with his own eyes. He knew the royal prince's methods better than anyone else. Once he made up his mind to do something, he would definitely do it to the end. Because Miss Zhuang felt embarrassed when she lost to Gu Jinyu in the competition, she decided to ignore Gu Jinyu. However, even though she didn't look for him, he came to find her. "What are you doing here?" The next morning, Miss Zhuang looked coldly at Gu Jinyu, who suddenly appeared in her courtyard, and questioned him angrily. Gu Jinyu smiled. "I'm here to deliver a copybook to Miss Zhuang." Miss Zhuang's expression changed. "You still dare to mention copybook? You're here to humiliate me, aren't you?" Gu Jinyu shook his head slightly and said with a gentle smile, "Miss Zhuang, you're mistaken. Why would I humiliate you? I saw Miss Zhuang's calligraphy yesterday and realized that the problem doesn't lie with Miss Zhuang." Miss Zhuang's interest was piqued. She raised her eyebrows and asked, "What do you mean?" Gu Jinyu said tirelessly, "Miss Zhuang's strokes are impressive. A normal girl's style is too small and doesn't suit Miss Zhuang's strength. If Miss Zhuang changes her handwriting, you'll definitely be able to create a majestic feeling." Everyone liked to hear good words, and Miss Zhuang was no exception. Her repulsion towards Gu Jinyu instantly lessened. "At least you have some eyesight. I've always felt that there was something wrong with the handwriting. No matter how I practice, it doesn't work. Why don't Miss Zhuang try this?" Gu Jinyu took out a copybook and placed it on the stone table. "Whose handwriting is this?" Miss Zhuang asked. "It's the young duke's calligraphy," Gu Jinyu said. Miss Zhuang immediately exploded. "You want me to practice a man's handwriting?" Gu Jinyu smiled and shook his head. "Handwriting doesn't differentiate between men and women. It's just that women have less strength, and it's easier to learn the style of a hairpin style. But if we're talking about handwriting, the young duke's handwriting is still the best." This was the truth. Gu Jinyu had also practiced it in private. Even if it wasn't the essence, it was still much better than the style of a hairpin style. She had begged this copybook with great difficulty from Imperial Concubine Shu, and Imperial Concubine Shu had used all her effort to get it from His Majesty. It was extremely precious. She had also made a great deal of determination before she was willing to take out the invitation. Gu Jinyu said gently, "Miss Zhuang, why don't you try it? You can start by copying it." Miss Zhuang felt that the handwriting was indeed beautiful. It was 10 times, 100 times better than the copybooks the Zhuang family had collected for her. Gu Jinyu had also persuaded her so nicely, giving her a way out. She had someone bring over a brush, ink, paper and inkstone. After copying a few words, she compared it with yesterday's handwriting. Indeed, there was an obvious improvement. Gu Jinyu praised, "Miss Zhuang is indeed extraordinarily intelligent. I practiced a lot in the past, but I still couldn't reach Miss Zhuang's handwriting. As long as Miss Zhuang works hard and perseveres, it won't be long before you surpass me." Miss Zhuang was pleased. Of course. After Xiao Lulang and Feng Lin went to the provincial capital for the imperial examinations, Gu Xiaoshan brought Gu Yan and little Jingkong for lunch. Among the three of them, Gu Yan was the oldest, but he had the least life experience. He was truly Baby Gu. Baby Gu was also picky. "I don't want to eat noodles today." Baby Gu pouted and said, "But you should eat noodles today." Little Jingkong spread his hands. Little Jingkong was a person with a plan. He arranged their meals in an orderly manner every day. Xiao Lulang didn't care what he ate, so he let him eat. Gu Xiaoshan didn't care either. In the past, Gu Yan thought that it was his brother-in-law's idea and cooperated. Ever since he found out that it was little Jingkong's plan, he started to disagree. "I don't care. I don't want to eat noodles." Gu Yan looked up at the sky. Gu Xiaoshan looked at little Jingkong, who was frowning, and then looked at Gu Yan, who didn't want to cooperate. He had a headache. He really missed his brother-in-law. How did he keep these two guys under control? Before Gu Yan appeared, Xiao Lulang and little Jingkong were two people who were at odds with each other. After Gu Yan appeared, the internal conflict changed. In fact, if little Jingkong wasn't a huge threat, Gu Yan and Xiao Lulang would also be at odds with each other. To put it bluntly, Xiao Lulang, the fisherman, benefited from the quarrel between his two younger brothers. Gu Xiaoshan was in a terrible fix and didn't know what to do. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared in front of him. His eyes lit up. "Sister." The two who were at odds with each other instantly quieted down and turned their heads to look at her. Gu Jiao came to the gate of the academy with a small basket on her back. She looked at the three of them and said, "Why haven't you eaten yet?" "It's all because of Brother Gu Yan. He didn't eat according to the plan." Little Jing Kong said with a serious face. Gu Yan snorted. "You only know how to complain all day long." Little Jing Kong put his hands on his hips. "I'm not complaining. I'm just stating the truth." Gu Yan snorted and said, "You made the plan yourself. I didn't agree to it." Little Jing Kong said reasonably, "I used to eat like this." Little Jing Kong had a little obsessive-compulsive disorder. Unless someone could persuade him with reason, he would change his plan. But obviously no one could win against him. Gu Jiao asked Little Jing Kong, "What are we eating today?" Little Jing Kong said, "Yangchun noodles." Gu Jiao looked at Gu Yan. "What do you want to eat?" Gu Yan stared at Little Jing Kong and said, "Rice and fish." Gu Jiao nodded. "Just in time. I brought some rice and fish. Let's go to a noodle restaurant and order another bowl of noodles." The two of them had no objection to this arrangement. Gu Yan was confused. "How do you know I want to eat fish? What if I said I wanted to eat meat just now?" Gu Jiao smiled. "Because I really want to eat fish today." A pair of twins was just that magical. They had lunch at the noodle restaurant. Gu Xiaoshan didn't need anyone to send him back to the academy. Gu Jiao sent Gu Yan and Little Jing Kong to the private school. Then she went to Huichun Hall and sold the herbs she picked from the mountain to them. It was still early. She planned to go to the iron shop to check on the progress of the farming tools. She would catch up with Gu Yan and the other two after school. 12 days had passed since Gu Jiao left the drawings. It took the carpenters 3 days to make the piston bellows designed by Gu Jiao. In the remaining 9 days, the iron shop really rushed out more than 1,000 pieces of iron for mining. The blacksmiths were all stunned. There was really such a magical treasure in the world. "Old Wang, this thing is much more useful than the imperial quartz drainage pipe," a young blacksmith said. The old blacksmith nodded in shock. "Yes, not to mention the imperial quartz drainage pipe. I'm afraid that the Liang Kingdom's drainage pipe is not as good." In terms of ingenuity and various small inventions, the Liang Kingdom was the best among the 6 kingdoms. The drainage pipe technology of the Liang Kingdom had already reached the peak. In order to obtain this technology, the Zhao Kingdom did not hesitate to exchange 3 mines. But even so, the Liang Kingdom only taught the Zhao Kingdom the basic drainage pipe technology. "Who is that girl?" The young blacksmith thought of something and opened his eyes in shock. "Is she a spy of the Liang Kingdom?" The old blacksmith slapped his head. "Are you stupid? How could a spy of the Liang Kingdom casually pass such a powerful technology to us?" "That's right." The young blacksmith finally realized how much his head hurt. He bitterly glared at the old blacksmith. "Don't you know how heavy your blacksmith's hand is? If you hit me again, I'll be a piece of fucking iron." "Old blacksmith, hee." The young blacksmith said. "What about that girl?" The old blacksmith said. "What do you mean what to do?" "Oh, you're talking about the farming tools. Since she really let me finish more than 1,000 pieces of iron in 10 days, then I will keep my promise. I won't take a single cent of her farming tools." Not only that, the old blacksmith also wanted to thank that girl in person. Unfortunately, he waited for an entire afternoon. But Gu Jiao did not come. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/115273153. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.